Oh man, oh man, oh man. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Den of Nerds. And oh man, do we have a juicy show for you today. It's gonna be a big week.
Dog, that Superman poster and theme has got me high PNV4L.
Hey, what the hell? Why is the talk to text on? What the fuck? We're trying to run a goddamn family show here. What? Holy! As I was saying, and I appreciate all the love and the support, everybody coming in. What is up? I hope you had a good weekend, man. We've got a big old show today, baby. We've got the first details for Superman. A description, a new poster. We get to listen to the theme. Sounds pretty good. And we have an official release date for the actual trailer. It's coming out this Thursday. So we got to go over all of that. I want to kind of get into that. I want to give you my plan for that. So we'll get into that. That's going to be really cool. Also, the bombing of Kraven the Hunter needs to be studied. I'm dead ass. This is crazy. This is way worse than many of us thought. So much so that Sony is scrambling, and we're hearing crazy things, man. We're hearing crazy things like they're acting like the Joker over there. They're acting like the Joker over there. This is nuts. Rumors that Sony is seriously considering selling the license back to Marvel Studios. I want to explain it. I want to explain why I believe it. I want to explain what it actually will look like if it happens. Because I don't think it's as simple as they're just going to sell it back or give it back. But I do think they're getting their ass kicked so badly that new arrangements might have to be made. So I want to explain that. I want to get into the details on that. It's going to be a good, juicy show. Okay? I'm quite excited. So yeah, we're going to get into it. It's going to be an exciting one, man. Let me catch up on some of these chats. See how all of you guys are feeling. Let me see here. So Javier Mendes, thanks for coming in first, man. 10 spot. That's not cheap. Appreciate you. This is where the fun begins. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. Absolutely, this is going to be a fun one. I think Thursday's probably going to be a really fun one. You know what I mean? That trailer's supposed to drop, I think, 9 a.m. I'm going to work on a breakdown. We'll get the breakdown out. And then after we get the breakdown out, we'll do the stream. So that stream might be a little bit later than 11. But, oh, man, that's going to be juicy. Brandon, thanks for the 10 spot, says, dog, that Superman poster and theme has got me hyped. Nerd Vengeance for life. I'm going to be honest with you. That was a good poster. That was a good poster, and I am honestly getting excited about the trailer and the possibilities, despite everything that, I feel towards Gunn and all of the skepticism and trepidation that I have towards the DCU. We're getting a brand new Superman trailer this week, and the lifelong nerd that I am, the sort of boyish wonder that I first had, like, reading Superman comics, because Superman comics were one of the first things I ever read as far as from comics. I can't help but get excited. I can't help but get hyped up and excited, and hopefully this thing is so good that we can let bygones be bygones and we can all get excited for Superman and the DCU. And if not, and if it's really Guardians of the Galaxy with Superman, then we can have fun taking a big old dump skis all over that trailer for several hours on Thursday. So either way we win, it's going to be very exciting. Chris, thanks for the super chat, says, so what are you? Some kind of super man? Yeah, exactly. And then Rossi in for the roast. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you guys for the support. How was the weekend? How was the weekend, chat? How you guys doing? How did your Steelers do? Not well, Siri won. And I think you already know that, you mother sucker. You mother sucker. A Superman film made by a Superman fan is a big W. I mean, potentially. Potentially. We shall see. CC Ryder, 34 months. Happy Monday, nerds. Appreciate you, brother. Hey, couple of things I want to talk about. Look, we've got a lot to get into today. After we get through all of the news, I have several packages that came in from you guys. I'm pretty sure some birthday love. I'm pretty sure some of it is coming from Austin. And it's a really, really dope comic book thing that he got me. So I'm really excited for that. We'll do that later on in the show. show notes this week, guys. I know I said I wasn't going to do a Nerdvenger stream this week, but since last week we just played Rivals, we will still do a Nerdvenger stream this week. Last one of the year. So come on by Wednesday night at 7:30. If you are a Nerdvenger member, come on by for that one, man. That's going to be a good one. We'll watch some Daredevil stuff. We'll just generally have a good time. We'll mess around, have some fun. Last member stream of the year, just because I got to go into like a holiday mode. And I'm working on a ton of different stuff right now, getting stuff ready for next year. So come on by for that. I also wanted to announce we are doing a Christmas tree contest. Okay. So if you have a Christmas tree and it looks dope, you can submit a picture of it on our Discord, and the mods are going to be the judge of that. And there's some cool prizes that they have for that. So if you're interested, if you're on the Discord, do your picture of your Christmas tree for the Christmas tree contest. I'll announce the winner and I'll show some of the top ones on stream. That's going to be pretty cool. So go check that out. It's going to be good. Other than that, I don't really have any show notes for you guys this week, other than the fact that Thursday morning is when the Superman trailer is supposed to come out. And I will be breaking that thing down immediately. First reaction, detailed breakdown, my thoughts on the tone, my thoughts on how it's going to hit the fandom. So I have to work on a very large video. So we won't stream on Thursday probably till like noon, maybe 1. And I apologize for that delay, but this is one of those things, like, this is going to be a big deal. So we got to make sure that video's out, get it out there. Y'all will technically get a chance to watch the video first. Then we'll get into the stream. We'll get in here together and we'll talk about it as a community. It's going to be sick. So Thursday's a big day. How excited are you DC fans, by the way? Like, are you guys getting super hyped up? You think it's going to be dope on Thursday? Do you think you're back? Like, are you back? Superman fans, what do you think? Let me know. Toasted Geek for 4 months says, it's a bird, it's a plane. It's the new Superman trailer. It is a new Superman trailer. You're not wrong about that. CC Ride, thanks for the 10 spot, brother. Says, cheers, brother. Have a great day. I appreciate it, man. I think we're going to have a great one over here. Sinister Spades, welcome to the Nerdvengers. You are a Nerdvenger now, brother. And let's see here. Down here, you said, let's go, listener, for the last 5 years. Love the content. Keep up the work, Josh. Go Lions. Well, you had me in the first half there. No, I'm just kidding. Go Lions. That's cool. Oh, fly, Eagles, fly, says Justin. And also, I invited Justin to play some Marvel Rivals with me the other night, and he rejected my invite. And I was so mad. Oh, my God. I was so mad. Captain says, I tried Rivals out today. Basically went in blind. Thor seemed cool, but it feels like there's a lot of button mashing and high sensitivity aiming. You mean in general, or you mean for Thor? Yeah, Rivals is really cool, man. But you know what I've come to understand? I think Rivals is hard. Like, at first I thought, okay, well, maybe I just suck, or maybe my teammates suck because having a lot of trouble on ranked. Then I realized the highest ranked people in the world right now are like plat. I think the game is just really fucking hard. I think there's a lot of movement. I think there's a ton of damage. Like, I was watching Shroud play, and he's shooting 60%. And everybody was like, what, 60%? And they were clowning on him. He's like, no, like, this game's hard. Like, it's hard to aim. I think with all of the characters doing so much damage and so much movement, I just think this game's fucking hard. And I think I'm excited to see how metas turn out, if there's like particular comps that do very well versus other ones. But yeah, I think the game's hard. I'm gold 1, says Mikkel. Ooh, nice. Easier to aim on mouse and keyboard. I don't know what the aim assist looks like on the game, to be honest with you. But like, when I do Black Widow, I do mouse and key because she's like a sniper. But I was trying out Hawkeye a little bit yesterday, who, by the way, is sick. But I was playing him on the sticks, and it was working out pretty good. It was working out pretty good. Bro, I started off hating it, but now I'm like 40 hours into the game. I think it's a really solid game, man. I think it's a really solid game. I think the devs are on point. I think content is going to be coming out for that game pretty regularly for a while. That's very exciting. Good competitive scene, all kinds of modes. So, hell yeah, we'll try to get some Marvel Rivals in this week for sure. But like, man, I got a lot going on, guys. I know I always say that, but like, I got a lot going on. Like, I got a lot going on right now. So, B Mall says, "What if Ray's parents are from Atten?" Oh man, they should have kept that shit a secret, man, because we don't need that. We don't need that. Hawkeye low-key overpowered. Hawkeye's pretty overpowered. He's pretty crazy, especially if you know what you're doing. Especially if you know what you're doing. Coffee Chiller says, "Josh, can't say enough about how much I love the channel. Also, I was wondering if you had any plans if there's a blizzards going on while the baby is on the way." Yeah, the plan is probably just do the birth myself, you know? It's like one of two options. Either we, shovel it out and trek through the snow, or Dr. Josh delivers the baby on the dining room table. What do you guys think? Can't be more difficult than 200 wins in Rivals, right? Like, that shit's got to be easy. Rossi, coming in hot with a 10 spot, says, "The one of the companies mess up the shipping address of your birthday gift. I'm going to try to recover it from the local post office now. The other is delivering today. Sorry on being so late." Well, first of all, you don't have to be sorry. You got nothing to do with that. Seems like those knuckleheads at the post office screwed you over. So no worries, man. I appreciate it. The thought is to me more special than even some of the stuff, except for what Austin got me, because it's like legitimately mind fucking blowing, like holy shit. But yeah, it's all good. Are there drones in your city? Yeah, probably, man. I don't know. Dr. Josh is a terrifying first sight for the new baby. Yeah, maybe we'll make it work. They call me Dr. Josh. Hell yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, should we get into the news? Wild topics to get into today. It is Monday, December 16th, and we've got to talk first about Kraven bombing in the box office. Epic levels of failure from Kraven. The Kraven failure literally needs to be studied, so we're going to study it. We're going to talk about it together. It's so bad that Sony might finally be learning. So I want to talk about that. Some of the reports over the weekend, crazy when it comes to Sony and potentially changes of plans, putting Spider-Man into stuff. That's wild. And maybe the craziest goddamn thing I've heard in a long time, the possibility of Sony selling the Spider-Man license back to Marvel Studios. This didn't just come out from My Time to Shine. Hello. Alex Perez sort of gave the nod on this as well, corroborated this. Holy shit. We got to get into that. And then, of course, DC news. James Gunn, Superman trailer. We've got a motion poster. We've got a minute of the theme. We've got a description for the film. We have a release date and time for the trailer. But that's not all, because there's still major rumors that Pattinson and the DCU is going to merge. That Matt Reeves will be coming in to do stuff with the DCU, and possibly Pattinson himself coming over into the DCU. And in fact, I think Grace speculated that could be something that was announced today. So far, no announcement, but I want to talk about that. I want to speculate about that as well. Okay, so let us begin. As I said at the top, the failure of Kraven literally needs to be studied. So let's go over it. Box office. Kraven the Hunter bombs with $11 million opening weekend. Worst start of Sony-produced Marvel films. Kraven, maybe the world's greatest hunter, but the comic book villain couldn't manage to climb to the top of box office charts. Sony's Kraven the Hunter, a superhero spin-off starring Aaron Taylor Johnson as Spider-Man's notorious foe, launched behind already low expectations at number 3 with 11 million from 3,211 theaters. It landed the worst debut for Sony's universe of Marvel characters behind February's misfire, Madam Web, which made $15.3 million. As well as some of the franchise's lowest ever marks from critics and audiences, with a Shakespearean tragedy of 15% on Rotten Tomatoes and a C grade on CinemaScore. Now, I want to just take a second here because we had a little discussion in the Discord yesterday. Some people were like, I don't even understand why it's a C. That seems like high for what people are saying about the film. So a C CinemaScore is one of the lowest CinemaScores you will ever see, okay? And this has to do with like confirmation bias. So the critics, their score is usually going to be just reflective of what they perceive to be the quality. Aggregate is usually pretty accurate to like how people feel about the movie. Audience score, that's usually a lot higher than the critic score, just in general, not always, but in general, higher than the critic score. And the cinema score, which is one of the best scores we have because of the way they do it. They're literally asking people as they're leaving the theaters, right? And it's instead of like what Rotten Tomatoes does, which is people go home, fill out a thing. I think you have to verify that you had a ticket now, and then you can, give your audience score to the film. The cinema score is like you just watched the movie, you're coming out, somebody's there with a clipboard, they're getting your shit, okay? So cinema scores usually pretty high. Like a B cinema score is considered pretty bad because the logic is all of these people, they paid to see this movie. They usually are like, well, I'm not an idiot. I wouldn't pay to see something that's absolutely crap. And so the confirmation bias kicks in and they give it a higher than usual score, okay? C as a cinema score, abysmal. Abysmal, guys, okay? That kind of reception signals that barring a holiday miracle, which we know Adam Fanjexer is holding out for, Kraven won't rebound over the rest of December. Kraven the Hunter is Sony's third Spider-Man adjacent adaptation of the year, following October's Venom the Last Dance. The Alien symbiote trilogy led by Tom Hardy has proven itself to be critic-proof and commercially successful. Although the third and final movie didn't live up to the box office heights of its predecessors, Sony has otherwise yet to produce a comic book hit from its offshoots led by tertiary Spider-Man baddies. What the hell? Tertiary? The studio also stumbled in 2022 with Morbius, a vampire-inspired thriller with Jared Leto as the fanged villain, another one of Peter Parker's infamous enemies. These ambitions began at a time when superheroes were all the rage at the box office, but ticket sales for too many recent comic book temples have been decidedly earthbound. The long-delayed Kraven, I think it was delayed over 4 different times, cost an upward of $110 million to produce. It was greenlit for 90, but then ballooned after the writer strikes and the actor strikes. Though it was co-financed by TSG, directed by J.C. Chandor. The R-rated film explores the origins of Sergei Kravinoff, the comic book character, the alter ego, including a rocket relationship with crime lord father Russell Crowe in his quest to become the greatest hunter. As the superhero genre has declined over the last 5 years, Morbius, Madam Web, and Kraven have led the race to the bottom, says David A. Gross, who runs the movie consulting firm Franchise Entertainment Research. Kraven's budget was downsized according to the realities of the market, but it's still too high for this kind of result. Now they go on to talk about War of the Rohirrim, which also really underperformed. But we're going to just stick into the Kraven aspect of this story for now. Okay, so Kraven, incredible bump. This puts it in the conversation for one of the lowest comic book movie openings of all time. So technically there are some real stinkers out there. I looked this up earlier. So you had Howard the Duck, which opened in 1986 for $5 million. Pretty freaking bad. The New Mutants in 2020, which was pretty much forgotten, opened at $7 million. Punisher Warzone with Ray Stevenson, may he rest in peace, $4.2 million. So a lot higher than some of the worst we've ever seen, but it's the worst that Sony has ever done, right? It's the worst they've ever done. And the second worst they ever did was earlier this year with Madam Web. So like they're having a very rough time of it. Even with Venom 3 doing decent, which kind of shocked us all. Like frankly, I'm still kind of shocked about it, and I enjoyed that film, but I can't believe it's actually doing those numbers. Even with that, Sony's looking at an absolutely terrifying year for their comic book, okay? Now, it seems like the studio is at least aware that this shit ain't working, okay? We had an article in the Wrap last week before the movie even came out. This article is kind of indicating they're not doing this anymore, okay? But there were like a lot of conflicting reports that came out over the weekend, right? Some people were saying, oh, they will be back. They'll be back to their old shenanigans. Alex Perez chiming in on a little bit saying like, yeah, they have an opportunity to reboot. There was an article saying that Sony wants to take this stuff more seriously and they want to put a Spider-Man in there, which opened up a ton of conversations about like, should it be Andrew Garfield? Should it be Tobey Maguire? Should it be a newcomer? And there was also, on top of all of that, another article which was asking the question basically of why Spider-Man had not been in these movies. Because I think one thing that's just super clear and obvious is that all of these movies would have done better with Spider-Man. Okay? Many of you even asked me last week, like, what's the deal here? Like, why wasn't there Spider-Man? And I had speculated that this was something to do with Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios. And I based this on a couple of different rumors. Like, there was a rumor by John Schnepp that Tom Holland shot a scene for Venom 1, but ultimately Kevin Feige didn't like it and ended up taking it out of the movie. According to an article in Deadline, there was no stipulation within the contract that they have with Marvel Studios that said that Sony could not have Spider-Man. And we know that they've tried different things. Like, remember the first couple trailers for Morbius where you had the Spider-Man that said traitor and he was like on the wall in graffiti? And there was originally an attempt to have Michael Keaton in the Morbius movie proper, seemingly setting it in the 616, right? You know, there were rumors that the Venom 3 movie was going to have a young Peter Parker. They ended up taking that out of it. There were rumors Andrew Garfield was going to be involved with that. Don't know if that ever came to fruition. There were major rumors in Madam Web. And I remember Jeff Steiner broke this news and Sony got really mad at him. But Sony did this thing where they were like, okay, we're going to connect it to Toby. No, we'll connect it to Tom Holland. Then they looked over all of that stuff and realized it didn't match up with either of them. And so their solution was just to cut and sort of edit around it. So according to Deadline, Sony was never restricted in using Spider-Man. They just thought to themselves that audiences wouldn't want to see Tom Holland Spider-Man in these other movies, which feels so weird to me. Like, does anybody actually believe that? Like, I gotta be honest, I feel like that Deadline article was literally written by Kevin Feige. Because if you go back to the sad Feige interview, the famous one where Amy Pascal is sitting there and talking about stuff, and Kevin is like sinking into his chair, fidgeting quite a bit, looking noticeably uncomfortable. What Amy is literally saying in that interview is, we're building a world to bring Tom Holland into. And Kevin's like, like literally, he was so uncomfortable. He didn't want that shit. He didn't want her to say that shit. He was like, nah. So, you know, again, according to Deadline, Sony just had the chance and botched it. I can kind of believe that. I mean, if you look at how inept they have been, it's not too hard to believe that they just totally screwed that up, right? But I also think if you look at like Venom, Venom 2, even Venom 3, there's obviously some plan, something that they've been building. I tend to believe that Kevin was like dangling stuff in front of them and that ultimately Kevin was super protective of what Tom Holland would actually show up in because Tom Holland is the MCU Spider-Man. So I guess I just want to say that like the official statement, because like guys, this is crazy. Kraven was so bad and it bombed so poorly that Sony's been scrambling. And we've seen a ton of different reports coming out trying to explain stuff, trying to signal that they are changing things, all these different things. It just seems like they're really in panic mode. And we're getting all of this information. And one of the pieces of information came out in that Deadline article. And it was basically like, no, we weren't restricted. We just didn't think people wanted Spider-Man. Oh, my God. So, look, I've got a big detailed video on this where I'm going to like go into like all the different things that were said and kind of try to make sense of it, right? But it seems like either way, something has to change, you know, and they're going to change it. Hopefully they can change it in a way that's more congruent with like what Marvel Studios does. Maybe they'll just get back to their old shenanigans with a new Spider-Man, and we'll just see how that goes. But either way, the bombing of Kraven the Hunter must be studied. This is wild, man. And Sony really thought they had something here. I mean, I kind of feel bad. Like, I personally think, and it's funny to say because like I don't think I'm going to watch this movie ever. But I remember in the lead up to it and things that I was hearing behind the scenes, Sony was pretty confident in Kraven. Like they think it's good. They think it might be one of the best things they've ever made. But the audience obviously disagrees. I mean, dude, you had people coming out and flaming this movie. That cinema score is horrible. That box office is terrible. Like, this is the biggest, like, slap in the face that could happen to a studio when they're making stuff like this. So, that's the report. I mean, we knew it was going to do poorly. But my God, 12 to 15 was the projections. We thought that was terrible. It literally came in lower than the already low box office expectations. This is mind-blowing stuff. Mind-blowing stuff. So, there you have it. Now, this, interestingly enough, brings us to another big rumor, something we got to talk about. I'm going to get this pulled up for you guys. Check this out. My Time to Shine says, I hear Sony is seriously considering selling the Spider-Man IP back to Marvel. Okay? Now, this made major waves. This actually got community noted at first. And then if you'll notice, the community note is actually gone. Part of the reason the community note is gone is because Alex Perez came forward to seemingly back this up. Now, I know this sounds crazy because, like, dude, I have told you guys for many years, there is no possible way Sony will let this license go back to Marvel. Part of the reason why is because the highest grossing films that studio has ever made are Spider-Man. If you look at the top 10 highest grossing Sony movies of all time, there's a couple James Bond movies in there. I think Jumanji's in there. And then it's all Spider-Man and then Venom. So even with all of the failure that they have had, Spider-Man and Sony, they're like, that's the most profitable thing that they possibly have. Okay? So this would legitimately be shocking. Like this would be shocking, and this would be one of those instances where almost everybody that had been reporting on this would be wrong. Because it wasn't just me that was saying that. It was like everybody was saying this. Everybody was saying this. Because it just wouldn't make sense. Like, why would Sony sell it back? Well, I mean, Kraven has failed to an unimaginable degree. And when you have a year with a Madam Web level failure and then a Kraven level failure, I think sometimes the rubber meets the road. So, Alex came out and kind of said, I think there's some truth to this. They've been right about stuff in the past. I would just listen and wait. That's really interesting when it comes to this story. Now, I want to kind of speculate on what I think could actually happen here. because I don't think Sony will just sell the license back. I mean, at this point, you'd have to value that license basically higher than what Marvel, or what Disney paid for Star Wars and Marvel probably combined. So like $8 to $9 to $10 billion. Would Disney be willing to pay $9 billion to get all of that back? I don't actually think so. I also don't think Sony's really interested in full-on selling this license back, okay? But walk with me on this, because there's actually like an option that's kind of in between. So I think the precedence here, and I say that specifically because in business, precedence is a really important thing, okay? If we think in those terms, there technically already is a deal between Sony and Marvel that involves the sharing of Spider-Man, okay? This is the Disney-Sony deal when it comes to Tom Holland. Now, this deal has evolved a lot over time. Currently, these are movies that are produced by Kevin Feige. They are Marvel Studios productions. They are technically Sony movies. I'm not actually sure how the distribution goes. It probably just goes through Sony and their normal channels. Sony puts up 75% of the budget, the investment. Marvel gets to put 25% of the budget up. And then they both take, the 75 and the 25% of the gross. Okay? So that's basically the deal that they currently have with the Tom Holland Spider-Man stuff. All right? So, what Sony really needs is their live-action movies to not lose them like an arm and a leg. That's the big problem, right? If you're Sony, the animated stuff is doing fine. Beyond the Spider-Verse, I know it's going to be delayed. That movie's going to be big. Spider-Verse is great. This Amazon thing, that could be huge. That's its own thing, Lord and Miller. It really ultimately comes down to what Marvel, or rather what Sony has been doing with the live-action movies. Okay, so we all agree that's really the problem. And it's not the Tom Holland stuff. It's the stuff outside of Tom Holland. So I could see a deal worked out that would sort of maybe flip the current arrangement of what they have with Sony with Tom Holland, and it would allow all future Spider-Man or Spider-Man adjacent films to be produced through Marvel Studios in the same way that they are currently when it comes to Tom Holland. All right? Are you still with me? Walk with me on this, man. I could actually see this as a possibility. Now, another big reason as to why I think this could happen. Long ago, one of the first plot leaks that ever came out about Avengers Secret Wars, this was when Avengers 5 was still called the Kang Dynasty, was that there would be a new universe created that was streamlined and brought all of the franchises and characters together. This came out from Paul from Heavy Spoilers, and one of the things he said was they wanted Tom Hardy's Venom to then become a part of the MCU after Secret Wars as a soft reboot. So what that implies is that this kind of a thing has been on the table before. Okay? And so maybe what it'll be is Sony will say, okay, Kevin, here's what we're thinking. We are not going to give you the license back. But if you give us a chunk of money, we will then flip the current arrangement so that Marvel Studios and Disney take 75% of the investment, takes 75% of the gross, has creative control over all of the studios. Sony still puts up 25% and takes 25%. Sony still has a creative voice in the room for those films specifically, but they will all come through Marvel Studios. Okay. By the way, I'm just speculating. I'm not saying that I've heard anything about this. I'm not reporting that. But what I'm saying is if you look at what Shine is saying, you look at the fact that Alex said there's truth to it, you look at the current problem that Sony is having, and you look at the actual already like arranged deal that they have, I think it makes sense to take the precedence of that relationship and expand it to the rest of the Sony Marvel things. I think that would be quite smart. Now, with that, though, comes a couple of interesting questions. So, number one, would Kevin Feige even want to do that? Right? Because right now, Kevin seems to be getting, all the eggs in the proverbial Secret Wars basket. And then he wants to do mutants. So essentially, with the Fantastic Four and the X-Men and the mutants, the next saga of Marvel is by and large sorted out. It's going to be mostly mutants. Kevin wanted Spider-Man to be one of the big faces of the MCU after the Infinity Saga. This is detailed in Joanna Robinson's book. A lot of others have talked about this. Sony already screwed that up. They screwed that up. So, does Kevin even want to sign such a deal to get more access to Spider-Man and Spider-Man characters and then have to figure out how to put Spider-Man and Spider-Man adjacent content into his new mutant saga? I'm not really sure. I just don't know that he even wants it that bad. And it seems like if the reports of, Tom Holland's deal are to be believed, they already have something figured out for Tom. You would imagine Kevin has exactly what he wants for Tom for like the next 5 years. So how does this benefit Marvel at all, basically is what I'm saying, right? I mean, I suppose you could say, well, it's going to stop comic book movie fatigue because, and I really do believe this, Madam Web hurting Marvel Studios. Venom potentially hurting Marvel Studios. Kraven potentially hurting Marvel Studios because if this fatigue continues and the audience continues to watch kind of like mid, not high quality, doesn't feel like it has like the love or craftsmanship that you would expect at Marvel Studios, it does just give a general fatigue towards going to the movies for comics. So I think from some perspective, it's like, maybe this is a good deal because then at least you don't have Sony like fucking this up and kind of ruining some of the goodwill that audiences have towards comic book movies in general. But I guess, I will sort of end this whole segment by just saying that I would not have believed in a million years that Sony would be interested in selling this license back to Marvel. But the failure has been kind of beyond my expectations as well. I also think the entire industry is changing, and Sony might look at maybe a sure thing or a more sure thing, which is like some of pretty decent box office grosses if it goes through Marvel Studios, as compared to taking these big risks with big budgeted things when the goodwill is completely gone and you're just bombing. So an absolutely unprecedented time for Sony Pictures, for their Sony Marvel Universe of characters. This is probably just the first smoke signal that's going up for this possibility here with Shine bringing this up and with Alex corroborating it. So I wanted to bring it up here, and I'll open this up to chat now. We can talk about this with like questions and whatnot because, man, this is fascinating. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe if Kraven would have made like 20 million, right? Like if Kraven would have made like 20 million and like coasted a little bit and got to like 200-300 mil, maybe this conversation wouldn't be happening right now. But guys, this is full-blown panic. This is full-blown panic mode. This is like the goddamn building's on fire. Kevin, how much do you want Spider-Man? Like, holy shit. Crazy time. So I'll open it up to questions in the chat, guys. What do you make of this situation? Wakey Bakey Sama, thank you for 10 months via Prime over on Twitch, man. I really appreciate it. Should do is sell the rights back to Marvel, but say they get a percentage of the profits from the shows and movies. Win-win. I agree. I think if anything, that's the deal. That's what they'll probably do. Yeah. Sony will overprice Spider-Man to make up the loss of all of those movies. I mean, I kind of agree with that, but at the end of the day, man, just looking at it objectively, the Spider-Man license is worth a lot of money at this point. I mean, so again, it's a tricky situation that Sony is in, mostly because they try to do this without Spider-Man. But I don't know, like, what do you guys think it's worth? I mean, I think it's worth quite a bit. Like, Spider-Man is worth quite a bit, I think. Kraven broke the system, says Dark Angel. I mean, facts. Like, and I really didn't see it coming. Like, I thought it would just be a fart in the wind, you know, and be like, oh, man, that's pretty funny. But for it to legitimately be doing worse than Madam Web, I mean, this is like emergency meetings on a Sunday kind of a situation. This is like your bonus is at stake. You know what I mean? Like, this is like, this is a big deal, dude. Spider-Man is the biggest superhero IP in the world, says Incredibly. I mean, I tend to agree with that, actually. You know, I mean, you look at No Way Home without China almost making $2 billion. That's insanity, right? That's insanity. Nuck says, it's my birthday today. I say do a buy and trade. Disney buys Spider-Man for a few billy, and they throw in Star Wars. So Sony would own Star Wars, says Nuck. Wow, Sony Star Wars, huh? I don't know. I mean, maybe at this point I'd roll the dice. Also, happy birthday to you, brother. Can we get some happy birthday wishes in the chat for my main man here, Nuck? Let's see here. I'll catch up on a couple of chats here. B Mall says, is the kid with the eyes a D from Solo? I don't know, but I don't think so, man. Cool Bear says, Josh, can you deliver me and Shin's baby? Absolutely. Trev says, Marvel would lose access to Sony content if the Sony studios were sold, even though they would get the license back. That's why Marvel has interest in buying it. Lose access to the Sony content. Okay, yeah, that's kind of interesting. I can see where your head's at with that. Yeah, that could be factoring in for sure. Optimus Prime Rib says, Insomniac made $4 billion for the Spider-Man game for Sony. Sell Spider-Man to Marvel on the cheap and get a lower license cost on all Marvel characters. Yeah, fair. I think that's fair. Aaliyah says, Sony doesn't get merchandise money. That is Disney. So the worth of the movie license they have is kind of limited. So not worth what we presume. I think there's some truth to what you're saying. And I think that's, again, probably why Sony is interested in, if not outright selling it back, finding a different arrangement. Because Disney, for instance, like, look, Disney wants to make money with their movies. But if they don't, they have a whole pipeline that they can try to make money off of the IP, kind of like the movie as well, right? So not only through Disney Plus and the idea of getting like an influx of subscriptions and that whole content train, but also merchandising, the parks, experiences, like all sorts of stuff, the licenses. So Sony does not have that with the Spider-Man thing. So they're really looking to make money via the movies. And like the proof is in the pudding. You just look at the movies and you're like, yeah, this shit ain't working. I mean, Venom, yeah, you guys kind of have something there. Tom Holland Spider-Man, yeah, you kind of have something there. These other movies, brother, you're losing bajillions of dollars. So it's interesting because we just never thought this was going to happen. I know a lot of you actually did. Like, there were a lot of people that would come into the chat every time and basically say, like, oh, they should sell it back, or like, maybe this will bomb enough and they'll sell it back. And I told you guys for years, no, it's not going to happen. They're not going to do it. For us to have arrived at a place where it's possible, wow, like that's failure that you just don't see every day. Mr. Falcon says, spending my 30th B-Day in Vegas, catching the Falcons versus Raiders game tonight. Go Falcons. Nerd Vengeance for life. Take my money. Appreciate you, Mr. Falcon. That sounds like a good-ass time, man. And happy birthday to you as well. Happy birthday to you as well. 30 years young. Wow. Pretty cool. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. I think we got to shift into some DCU news. DCU news. Okay, so we had been hearing for some time that today was going to be a special day for the DCU. Today is apparently the day where the Superman trailer is going to be shown to the press. Okay? Now, on top of that, there were big rumors that other announcements would be made today as well. And then just last night, Daniel RPK scooped that the trailer would officially release on the 19th. Now, scoops, when it comes to James Gunn stuff, is like weird. I actually tend to believe a lot of the scoopers still have just as good of sources, just as good of information as they did before. But Gunn will try to debunk people, publicly shame people. Gunn will literally change things just so that scoopers are proven wrong. So I was like, okay, Daniel says it's Thursday. That would be great. Don't know for sure. Well, crazily enough, they actually officially confirm with this little Superman official teaser trailer thing here that we're looking at right here. Official teaser trailer, Thursday, December 19th, 6 a.m. PST. That's 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And I will be seated and ready to go for that trailer. Now, the current plan, I will watch the trailer. I'll do a little reaction. I'll do a breakdown. We'll get a video out there. Video will hit. We'll probably be live like close to noon that day. And then we'll get in here and we'll discuss the trailer at length with all of you. Okay. There's so much that I'm interested. You know, we've talked about this before, but I don't think there's been more pressure on a trailer maybe ever. This movie is so important to what Gunn has promised, to what Gunn wants to do, to the DCU, and its possible future or possible failure. This movie's a massive deal. I think, in addition to that, the trailer is under extra pressure and extra scrutiny because the DC fandom is divided, and, frankly, because there's just a lot of questions about what the hell James Gunn is doing, and most importantly, can he strike the proper tone? Something outside of his wheelhouse. Not a Creature Commandos, not a Peacemaker, not a Suicide Squad, not a Guardians of the Galaxy. A Superman movie. Gunn talks a big game. Gunn says he understands the character from comics. Can he let his own sensibilities get out of the way and do what's needed to make a proper Superman movie? Now, there's been a lot of kind of drama leading up to this, a lot of stuff that we have discussed. There was a screening for Superman that Gunn's been pretty hush-hush about, but in the wake of that screening, reshoots were announced. In the wake of that screening, Gunn decided not to go to CCXP. We got reports that the studio put a lot of pressure on Gunn. They have multiple cuts of the trailer. The trailer was delayed. This day, the 16th, all the stuff that's happening right now, this was supposed to happen last Monday. Okay? Now, we're not saying for sure that all adds up to like problems with the movie, et cetera, et cetera. As some people have said, this could just be them taking extra care, trying to get this right because they understand what's at stake. Okay? As far as what has happened thus far just today, I give them a high score. Okay? I give them a high score. Number one, let's talk about this motion poster. This look, which is so much better than I think the first look we got at Superman. I think it's so much better than a lot of the set photos that we got from Superman. You have David Cornsweat here, chest puffed up, flying through the air, things and colors streaking around him in some kind of awesome motion poster look. I think it looks great. I truly think it looks great. And via this post, we have our first taste of seemingly the actual theme for Superman and the movie. Let's play this and let's listen to this together. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I mean, I gotta tell you, expectations exceeded. That's really, really nice. It sounds nostalgic. It sounds very atmospheric. It has epicness caked into it. You know, music is so important. You know, what would Star Wars be without John Williams? I mean, I don't know. I know for sure, though, it wouldn't be as popular as it is. John Williams' music is like the secret sauce of Star Wars. George has said it himself. It's pretty magical, okay? This theme, this shit's pretty good, man. This gives me chills. And let's be real. Let's be real. God damn. Just listen to this shit, bro. That's nice, bro. And the thing is, like, let's be real. I have a personal vendetta against this motherfucker. Like, I don't like James Gunn, you know? But when this music pops on, bro, I'm looking at this Superman poster here, all of that shit fades away. And I'm like that little kid again, looking over the Superman comics. Like that's pretty nice. So already off to a great start. And I would argue this is a much better way to do things than all of the goobly glob nonsense that Gunn has been involved with over the past year or two. I think his social media presence is super annoying, and it actually hurts the fandom. If we just kept it clean, we just had dope shit like this, I think we'd be in a much better spot. But credit where credit is due. This is really good. And I think it does get people hyped up. And I think the idea of officially announcing the trailer for Thursday, I think that also gets people excited. And I think that's a smart move. Now, I want to go over a description, an official description here, a synopsis for Superman. Let's get this pulled up. It says here, this summer, Warner Bros. Pictures is bringing The Man of Steel to cinemas worldwide. God damn it, why'd you put Man of Steel there? Superman, the first feature film from DC Studios for the big screen, is ready to take off. In his unmistakable style, oh no, James Gunn takes on the legendary superhero in the newly conceived DC universe and delivers a unique mix of epic action, humor, and heart. Gunn presents a Superman whose motivation is compassion and an unwavering belief in the good of people. Okay, so look, I gotta say, decent, but I have some mixed feelings about this. First of all, I don't love the Man of Steel usage here. Come on, man. Why you gotta throw goddamn shots of Man of Steel like that? I don't like it. I don't love this James Gunn and his unmistakable style. I think it was a mistake for his unmistakable style to be all over this Superman, so I'm not loving that. But I do love a mix of epic action, humor, and heart. And I do love him having his core motivation being compassion and an unwavering belief in the good of people. So we have a lot of interesting DC stuff coming here. A lot more information. The ball's officially rolling. Now, a couple of things I'm curious about. Number one, is the press actually still seeing this thing today? Are they going to put out articles? Will we get some leaked descriptions? That's kind of interesting. Again, I think this whole idea of having the trailer shown to press, I don't think it's a good idea. But as I've said from the start, I'm open to being wrong here. It could be a genius move. Like, it could just build even more hype. It could actually set the audience up to sort of already have an expectation of what's coming and then have their expectation exceeded by what's actually in the trailer. So we're going to see that. I'm really curious to see if that actually happens. Apparently, and I don't know if this is true, but some people are saying that Jeff Snyder said that he's literally not invited to the presser because of some of the comments that he's made in the past. And I think we probably knew that the press that would be invited to this event would be super friendly, right? Like, we probably already knew that. But I mean, that again just doesn't feel like a confident move. I remember back in the day, after Batman v Superman, the Warner Brothers people invited a bunch of the critics that had really crapped on BVS, like some of the most harsh critics. They invited them to London where Zack was shooting Justice League. And they were filming that scene with Ezra Miller where he catches the Batarang, and it's that kind of funny scene in like the Flash's lair with Bruce Wayne. And they were just trying to show to the press and everything like, hey, look, we're doing things a little differently here. It's going to be a little more lighthearted in Justice League, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that went on to become a complete and total disaster. But I like that strategy a lot more. Like that at the time, I was like, damn, that's pretty ballsy. That's pretty cool. And it certainly got my attention. Having a bunch of press that you think will be very friendly to you, be the first people to see the trailer, that's an eyeball. That's a side eye, eyebrow raising. I don't know about that kind of situation. But we will see. We will see how that happens. And I think that'll happen later today. Now, another really interesting aspect to this whole situation here is like the rumors of Matt Reeves' Batman coming into the DCU. And some people are beginning to be so convinced that this is happening that they think it could even be announced today. Okay? The reason I'm putting that out there is because I truly believe so far so good today, you know? I'd give it an A+, maybe A-. Very good. Very good job with what they've done today. It's got people talking, got people interested. If this week sees an announcement of Batverse and Reeves with the DCU, and you potentially get the idea of Pattinson in Superman, and then the Superman trailer pops off, if that happens, then they're cooking with gas, ladies and gentlemen. That would be legitimately the most exciting series of announcements DC has had. I don't know. I don't even know how long. That's a real winner of a bunch of different announcements. So I'm totally open to that happening and to DC actually getting on the level of Marvel. I would imagine this trailer is going to do serious numbers. I would imagine the content based around this trailer is going to do some serious numbers. That in it of itself is not something DC has had for a long time. I know people like the Penguin. Penguin content didn't really pop off like that. Like, it's not the same thing as like, oh shit, RDJ's coming back for Doctor Doom. Like, everybody goes nuts online, right? It's not the same thing. this would be something different. And like, wow, dude, as a DC fan, like this would take me back to like when we saw the first trailer of BVS, man. That's when it felt like this thing was still working. Things were rocking and rolling. Oh my God. That trailer's amazing, by the way. So a lot of pressure. I think this is when the rubber meets the road. And we've got a little taste of what they're cooking via the poster, via the description, via the theme. I think we're off to a good start here, man. And I'm very excited for Thursday. So that is essentially all the announcements so far today about Superman. Way better than all the stuff we talked about last week with the DCU, the Clayface stuff, all the projects being canceled, etc., etc. This could be really big for them. This could be really big for them. So, I'll open it up to you guys in the chat. Questions, comments, concerns. How do you feel about what you're seeing here for Superman so far? Do you have any questions about anything we've discussed here? Will you be here on Thursday when we break down the Superman trailer together live on stream? I think it's going to be one of our all-time great streams. Can't wait for that shit. So, what do you think, chat, about this first day of publicity for Superman and the DCU? Jarn says, Batman being way different tone with Pattinson compared to Superman would actually work. I mean, yeah. I mean, Superman and Batman are tonally very different. They just are. Now, they can be used in similar ways, and there have been great stories that have adapted them together. But Superman's, like, hopeful. You know, that's what that is. Batman is dark, gritty, noir. These are totally different. And yet, they can work together, right? So that would be pretty cool. Ty, yeah, I saw that, Ty, about Alex. We can talk about that a little bit later if you want. There's one thing in particular I want to talk about with that. And then I've got a bunch of big videos that I want to talk about with that. The only thing is that's a little bit spoilery. Will we get a second Superman suit? The speculation is yes, because people have noticed that the suits that Gunn has shown do already look very different. So I would say yes. Yeah. I think we are getting Gunn's Guardian style manifest in Justice League characters and how the modern heroes versus Superman's old school morality, a la Kingdom Come and Superman versus the Elite, says Trev. I think that's a good note. I mean, I could see that. If that happens, I'd be a little bit more comfortable with it than like Superman listening to a Walkman on the moon making fart jokes, you know? So I think that's probably a better route for them to go. And I could see that. You know, we've heard that there was, you know, the Elite, Superman versus the Elite. We've heard that, you know, Kingdom Come is sort of a motivation there. So yeah, I could absolutely see that. That would be preferable. Josh, apparently Batman is going to appear in Creature Commandos episode 7. It's apparently implied that it's not Pattinson. It's most likely going to be a Arkham Batman design. Well, I think if this ends up being true, and if they end up merging it, Gunn will just do what he's doing with Peacemaker and the canon. It seems that it seems that Gunn is trying to utilize canon, but he's not trying to have all of the downsides of utilizing canon. Now, you can think of this one of two ways. This is actually how Dave Filoni views stuff too, right? So Dave Filoni says, if the canon prevents you from telling a good story, then forget the canon, right? Like, forget the canon. Dave also believes that inherent to Star Wars is this idea that all these tales are recounts of stories. Meaning, you might pick up one piece of Star Wars literature or a movie or a show. It's going to tell you a story from a certain perspective. But from a different point of view, perhaps that story is told a little bit differently. That's the Dave Filoni strategy, and I think that's why Gunn has recently said he wants to be more like Star Wars than Marvel. Okay. You know, your mileage may vary on how you feel about that. Kevin Feige obviously feels differently. It's not that they don't do retcons over at Marvel like they do, but by and large, everything works within the canon. That makes things more difficult, makes it harder to like schedule things and plan things out. And we have seen that that has negative effects. That can be bad, but I like it. So I kind of like it. I kind of prefer the Marvel way. But going back to your question about Batman, right? What I'm basically telling you is right now, as far as we know it, Pattinson is not the DCU Batman. But Gunn wants him to be very badly. It is possible, because Gunn also recently said there was no script for the Batman 2, and yet a year ago, Matt Reeves says the script was doing very well. So, like, somebody's lying. It's Gunn, right? So, Gunn wants it. There's stuff happening behind the scenes. If it happens, Gunn will just come out and say, all of this stuff isn't real. All that stuff that said there was a different Batman, just disregard it. This is Batman now. That's what he will say. Like, I promise you, that's what he will say. It's up to you to decide whether or not you like that. Look, for me, man, and of course, I've been very skeptical of a lot of his decisions. You know, I'm skeptic of the whole goddamn thing, really, but I have to say, and I don't even like the Batman. I didn't even finish the Penguin, guys, okay, right? But I have to say, I think it's the right move, and I think if Pattinson joined the DCU, that's like epic. That's like lightning in a bottle. That's something that could potentially stand up to some of the big Marvel announcements. That's huge, dude. Like, that's legit. That's legitimately huge. And then if they can actually figure out how to make that work together, like, I'm down. I'm literally down. That would be sick. So I actually hope they get it figured out. It would get me more hyped, and I don't even like the Batman, bro. But if you got that Batman with the Justice League, with the Authority, with a Lex Luthor, with a Superman, now all of a sudden we're cooking. Like, now all of a sudden we're legitimately cooking. RG2088 says, but also, isn't Superman and a few other heroes going to appear in Creature Commandos? And they're going to be dead or something? No? Could be a dream or a vision or another reality. Yeah, I think it's a vision. I haven't watched it, but I know what you're referring to, and I think it's a vision. Yeah. If you can't handle me at my Penguin, you don't deserve me at my Batman. That's pretty clever. Touche to you. Touche to you. Would you want that, Josh, or too early to say? What do you mean, about the Batman? I want Batman to be in the DCU. Now, there's all sorts of questions here, right? Because you probably have to abandon the ideas of Brave and the Bold, which it kind of seems like they might have done either way. I mean, Roca says that that director, Muschietti, he's not on it anymore. It's not coming anytime soon. They don't have a script. You can't go from Batman and the Flood, and then there's a Penguin show, and then all of a sudden you want to do Batman with Damian and all that sort of stuff. So you'd have to change that plan. That's kind of a bummer. Nerd of the Rings, great question, bro. That would be a bummer with the Batman situation, but I still think it's so hyped that you just alter the plan. You can still get to Damian, and you can even talk to Matt Reeves about how he wants to do Damian or what Robin he wants to do, right? So yeah, we'll see. Nothing official on that end, by the way. This might not happen, but at this point, there's so much smoke. There's so much smoke that I think there's probably fire. Rob, what up, though? What up, though? Okay, guys, I think that's all of the main topics for today. We can get into Q&A. We can talk about some of the minor topics. There is some other sort of smaller news that is out there. But again, the Kraven news, the Spider-Man news, wild times. Is DC back? Kind of seems like they might be. This motion poster is incredible. Thursday coming on the 19th. Trailer coming on Thursday the 19th. We'll be doing that. Rumors of Pattinson coming into the DCU. Ooh, the theme. It's crazy. It's crazy. So let's open it up into Q&A and get into a little bit more of the smaller bits and all that, huh? Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, guys? What's going on? What are your questions, comments, concerns? Is DC taking back shots? I mean, maybe. I don't know. Shit, bro. Alex CC December Discord Part 1 discussion. Yeah, should we just go over that? You guys want to go over that? Call Grace. Should I give Grace a call? I was thinking about hitting Grace up. I was gonna be like, hit Grace up and be like, hey Grace, big fan. Sorry that I think you're my time to shine, but like, you want to collaborate or something? Question, which YouTuber do you hate the most and why is it heavy spoilers? I don't hate Paul. I just hate that he's British. You know? Paul's actually a good friend of mine. I love Paul, but like, damn, dude, he's a Brit. You know, I try to support him. He's like, James Bond's better than Ethan Hawke. I'm like, get the fuck out of here, you know? So. DC been taking back shots? Yeah, maybe. Then she'll block you. She's very block sensitive. Grace has blocked me before. And somebody convinced her to unblock me. I'm a fan. I'm a Grace fan. Dare I say a stan? I'm a Grace stan. You know what I mean? Question, which YouTuber do you love the most and why is it Comics Explained? I do love Comics Explained. What a guy, man. Ethan Hawke versus James Bond, that's quite the matchup. Yeah, it is. Wait, is it Ethan Hunt? Yeah. Ethan Hunt. That's what I meant. But you know what? I'm going to be honest. Ethan Hawke and Kevin Bacon, better than James Bond. 100%. I thought you and Grace were cool this whole time. I mean, I don't know that we're not. We just had a little scuffle on the internet. And she told me to fuck off. Did you guys see that? She was like, fuck off, Josh. And I was like, you're still my goat. Hey, Josh, completely unrelated. But are you going to read the new TVA comic that's coming out in 2 days, taking place after Deadpool 3? What? I didn't even know that was a thing. Oh, Frastrodamus, good one. Good one. That's a good one there, bud. That's pretty good. John Wick takes them both out. Yeah, probably. Probably, yeah. Will you call Comics Explained to ask him why Sony screwed up their comics universe? Absolutely. You trying to get on a call, Rob? Want me to give you a call? Also, we got to play some Marvel Rivals together again. Should I call Rob? Maybe I'll call Rob and I'll call Grace. Get them all on the call. Do it. Do it. Call Jim Jaspers. Yeah, heck yeah. What's the question, brother? Curious to hear Josh's thoughts on it. All right, I'll give you a call. Give me just a minute here, Rob, and I'll give you a call. By the way, great conversations with Matt, Nerd of the Rings, over the weekend. We've been chatting on Instagram and via email. We got some cool plans, man. We got some cool plans for the coming podcast. All right, let me catch up on a few chats here, and then I will give Rob a call. The theme makes me want to put on my red and blue pants. Hell yeah, bro. It's a good theme. You got to give credit where credit is due. I always try to be fair. Snarky, irritating, Very dickish, but fair. The Den of Nerds. Joey says, Superman theme def better than the Man of Steel theme. You don't say that. 47 months, god damn, help me get from normie to swarmy to sweaty with this stuff. We need the 48-month badge. We got Vader hallway scene 8 years ago. Oh my god, that was 8 years ago? Get out of here, bro. Get out of here. Why are you making me feel so old? I would love to make a 48-month badge. Guys, I am swamped with bullshit right now. Just a lot going on. But we'll look at it. Zombie with a 5 spot says, Josh, how do you feel about the X community notes discrediting Shine, reference them as an engagement farmer, and cites all their bad scoops? Yeah, I mean, that note got removed. I mean, look, I do think Shine goes a little bit wild, but there's a reason I still follow her. I mean, I still think she has great sources. She's good. You know, like, so I think community notes is a very useful feature, but it's not like community notes always gets shit right. You know what I mean? To me, that sort of struck me as somebody that's just kind of jealous or maybe mad that Shine's either getting like clout or money from this stuff or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, she's not perfect. Take it all with a grain of salt. The only one that's perfect is me, you know? John Bow 16 with a 5 spot says Dune Prophecy had a crazy reveal last night. I wish the show was getting more hype. So we did not watch the show last night, mostly because Elisa was super tired. She went to bed super early. And we watched that show together. So we'll probably watch it tonight. I haven't seen it though. I'm liking the show, but I kind of told you all, like, ain't nobody watching that show. It's a shame, but ain't nobody watching that thing. And wasn't that episode like 4 or 5? They got like 1 episode left. It's wild. John Cross says, weren't there set photos when filming the Batman of people dressed as Supes and Wonder Woman? Yeah, that's true. Wasn't it originally going to try to connect to the wider DCU? I don't think it was ever going to connect to the wider DCU. I think Matt Reeves always designed it to be its own thing. But I do remember those set photos, yeah. Studo Matt says, Josh, I know you're a big puss with scary movies, but can you please see Nosferatu vampire film? Supposed to give Dune 2 a run for its money for Best Picture. So that's kind of like saying, hey, Josh, I know you don't like this shit, but can you go watch the shit you don't like? No! And Nosferatu, I don't know much about it, but even the name sounds scary. I don't even like reading that name. Nosferatu. Ooh, I just got to chill. John says, I work in graphic design. I can make a badge in my spare time. Where would I send it? Not asking for moolah. Just want to make it for fun. Send it to me on Discord. We'll see what's up. Brandon Russell for 40 months. Holy shit. Says, yo, Josh, want to say thank you for what you do. I sign on my first Fortress of Solitude on the 24th and can't wait to start this next stage of life with the Nerd Vengers. Nerd Vengers for life. Hell yeah, brother. We got a good couple of years coming up for the community, man. The nerds have won, and guess what? We're still winning, baby. All right, Rob, I'm going to give you a call, brother. Let's talk about Sony. Let's talk about Sony. Sony. By the way, chat, you see that Yoda back there? I got that for my birthday. That thing talks. It moves around and stuff. What's up, Rob? What? Oh, is it? Okay, let me see. Maybe it's on my end. No, it should be good. Should be good. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, Discord needs to get their shit together. I mean, I love Discord, but yeah, it's unreliable. Unreliable. Yep. Okay. Yep. What do you guys think, man? Is Discord just crazy? Or is there something we're doing wrong? Is Discord terrible, or are we boomers? Like, is there something we're not doing? Like, you got a Windows update or some shit? Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I don't know what happened, man. The shitification, I guess. So I've actually seen you discussing this via Twitter. Let me make sure I got to change this so they can hear you. What? So you're doing some stuff in Unreal, and now is this like just more like high quality vids or?
No, so okay. So not to sound arrogant or anything,
Yeah.
but one of the things that I love about being a pioneer in the comic book YouTube community is occasionally I come up with these ideas to kind of like take the comic book YouTube community to a place that it otherwise never would have gone to. And so I was just sitting here and I was like, you know what would be really dope? Because like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of in shambles at the moment.
Yeah.
Like it would be dope if I taught myself Unreal Engine and then turned Marvel Comics into a real place
Mm,
and gave people a tour of it.
that'd be sick, dude.
So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I like that. I saw you were doing one of the planets, right? Like,
Well, that was just me kind of experimenting.
Okay.
Using, creating like solar systems and planets and like realistic lighting and stuff like that. But now that I've got the hang of it, yeah, like I'm getting ready to learn procedural generation. But yeah, I was like, I'm just going to teach myself Unreal Engine 5 and then
So-
I'm going to turn Marvel Comics into like an actual place.
so this will be kind of like a high fidelity rendered 3D world that kind of matches up to the canon of the comics, and you're gonna do kind of like videos that like explore different regions, or
Yeah. So I won't go like super in depth,
Yeah.
but because some of it, I mean, I want a good chunk of it to be a surprise. But like as a frame of reference,
Yeah.
there was this one scene that I shot that's just like it starts out close to Earth, and then eventually like it zooms out, like the camera turns and all that kind of stuff. That sequence was probably I don't know, maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and it was 1 terabyte.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my
Like
god,
it was freaking crazy.
Yeah,
Now I
that's
mean like
nuts.
once you import it into like Resolve, you color grade and then you export. Of course, it's a far more manageable file size.
Sure.
Like a couple gigabytes, but like 1 terabyte because it exports is like raw images,
hmm
right? So it's like 16,000 raw images in a sequence. So it's nuts. But like working with Unreal is giving me like this whole new understanding of why CGI takes so long when it
Mhm.
comes to making like Marvel movies. Because I firmly believe that like right now, when it comes to like the what do they call it, post production, that 90% of that is just like CGI rendering.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of like what is making these shows and movies either look badly or like take forever, right? So like House of the Dragon takes like 2 years in between each season, probably just because they're rendering those dragons, you know?
Yeah, man. Well, that's the crazy thing is, I mean, for some of it, I'm going to use things like AI video footage and stuff like Center's Market, for example. But yeah, like Alex, I guess kind of the manager that I have. I don't really know exactly what his position is, but he like oversees everybody else in the brand. He's been helping me out big time when it comes to Unreal. Like he said,
nice.
dude, he found assets for the Celestials, and here's the crazy thing. I'm still debating on how exactly I want to present it, but I'm kicking around the idea of getting a mocap suit,
Oh, dude.
and that would be dope.
That would be
Yeah.
sick. Well, look, man, I'm
Yeah.
excited to see. I love this kind of stuff. And, speaking of Paul, you were saying earlier, I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff he's doing for his James Bond breakdowns, but
No.
he took a super highly produced route. He went to a certain place, shot on a soundstage, shot with like a director of photography to like get some of the
What?
actual bro, like he's doing some
Hold
crazy
on.
stuff with his James Bond breakdowns. That's like, I mean, he told me the catering bill for the crew for all the stuff he shot was over $7,000. So like whatever he's doing, he's putting a lot of money and a lot of time into it. So look, I love this stuff because I think you guys are already like titans of YouTube, you know what I mean? But I love when you are trying to push the envelope or do something, you know, further beyond that scope, because sometimes like YouTube can get to a place where you're like, okay, I can sort of just copy pasta this formula and like whatever, it's going to do its thing forever. But the idea of like, yeah, but I have this artistic itch to take it to another level or to do something that feels like a good creative outlet. Like I love that kind of stuff. And I actually think this is the time. And I think YouTube is going into that direction where we're going to see stuff that's basically like television shows that are developed via YouTubers. And then that's going to be like a big part of the ecosystem in the next 5 to 10 years. So I look forward to seeing what you do with that, man. I'm excited.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just kind of bored. Like, I mean, I've got my formula for my videos, and you know, the popularity of the videos waxes and wanes. Like this time of year, for example, right? Like everybody's out holiday shopping, so YouTube in general, right? You know, is going to see like some measure of a downtick in terms of viewership.
Sure.
And so it's just kind of like, okay, like whatever. I just want to create something cool.
Yep.
And that is one of the directions that YouTube's going in. Is kind of in this day and age. Okay, so it's not where it was like back when I first started and back when you first started, where it was just like crank out a ton of videos, right?
Yep.
Like a video every day.
Yep.
Like it's not really like that anymore. You know, now, I mean, you can, once your channel's a certain size, sure.
Yep.
You know, but nowadays it's more of like you're better off creating a very highly curated video
Yep.
and releasing it once a month.
Yep.
Than releasing a video like every single day. I just do videos every day because I like getting paid.
Yep.
I like the money that my channel brings in.
Yeah.
Right? Like I enjoy that. But
Dude, I
could
totally
easily
get
scale
it.
down and do 3 a week or 1 a week or something like
Yeah.
that and be fine. Like, you know, it's
Yeah, I totally
it's
get
one of
it.
those
And
things.
I think that's the thing. It sort of gets to a point where if, yeah, especially depending on the channel or depending on the niche, like once you have that formula, if that audience is there and you just continue to feed that algorithm, like you're going to hit a baseline, right? Like you're going to hit a baseline and it's going to be comfortable, but it just becomes really grindy, you know what I mean? And just
Yeah.
kind of boring. So look, I'm excited for you, brother. I got some ideas I'm cooking up too, but honestly, I'm going to wait to see what you and Paul do, and I'm going to steal all your best ideas and try to like figure something out. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I want to see Paul. Dude, I had no idea Paul was putting that much effort. I really want to see what he does.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No,
that's gonna be dope.
I'm
That's gonna be
really
cool.
excited for that. So what's up with the Sony thing, man? What's your take, man? Kraven. Kraven.
I was kind of hoping it wasn't the case. Like there was a part of me that was really hoping that Kraven was going to be just kind of like this, you know, this just Hail Mary, right? Where they were just going to lob that shit up and they were going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
And Kraven was going to be great. And then like the first reviews start coming out and it's like a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. And it's like, Jesus, Sony. And then the news comes out where it's like Sony wasn't forbidden from using Spider-Man. They just didn't think they needed him. And it's like, and okay, so I won't go into like a ton of detail, but I had a conversation. And ultimately, nothing really seemed to come out of it. So I just ended up making a video about it instead.
Okay.
But I had a conversation with some people who were in positions of influence and whatnot. And I was like, here's what you guys should be doing. I was like, the reality is like Marvel Cinematic Universe, like as Sony, and with nothing but Spider-Man, all you have is Spider-Man. And there's only so much Spider-Man you can make before people just don't care anymore.
Yeah, true.
Right? Like Marvel kind of has you beat because they can create movies on all kinds of characters.
Yep.
And TV shows on all kinds of characters, right? So it's a war of attrition that you will inevitably lose. So do what Marvel's not doing. Marvel makes movies, they kill their villains, they're always treated as one and dones, or they don't give them any real measure of seriousness. Make your villains serious. And make a movie about your villains. And then at the end of the movie, the villain fights Spider-Man. So you're telling the story from the other side.
Sure.
And I was like, and you could do this in a variety of different ways. You could do it in a way where you almost kind of make us sympathetic for the villain. And so while we don't necessarily see Spider-Man as like a bad guy, it's just like, God, if Spider-Man would just stop and listen, you know, like it kind of, it sort of pulls the audience, right? But what keeps the audience coming back to those movies are the unique origin stories of the villains themselves. And then by the time you get around to Sinister Six, the movie feels less about like 6 dudes running around just being dicks. And it feels more like the Victim Syndicate. Did you ever read Detective Comics Rebirth with the Victim Syndicate story?
No, I
think
don't
it was
think
James
so.
Tynion.
No, I don't
It
think
was
so.
really cool. So the Victims Syndicate was basically a coming together of people who had been caught up in the collateral damage of Batman's fight with villains.
Wow. Okay.
And they allied together and then tried to take out Batman and the Bat family. On paper, it seems a little, I guess, but like the comic itself was fantastic. The story was incredible. But it kind of gives that feeling, right? Where these villains are more like victims of circumstance that the audience on some level can relate to.
Yeah.
And in turn, you know, Spider-Man isn't really a bad guy so much as just like, God, Spider-Man, just listen to what they have to say, man. And it totally changes things. Now, where you go from there, I don't entirely know. But instead, they were just like, well, let's just make movies about villains. So let's not put Spider-Man in it because, you know, we can make movies about villains without Spider-Man. And it's like, no, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, dude.
Like, that is a terrible, terrible idea. So I don't know, man.
It's pretty wild. I mean, you know, going back to the article, right? Like the article says specifically that there was nothing in the contract that prevented it. And it kind of implies in the article that they legitimately thought there might be fatigue of Tom Holland Spider-Man if they were just putting him in everything. And I'm just like, I don't know, bro. Like I don't know that that's true because I tend to believe that Tom Holland is a little resistant to the idea. I tend to believe that Feige's a little resistant to the idea. And maybe even if it's not in the contracts, like I can't help but think that like there were some things that maybe were going to happen and then Kevin said no or Tom Holland said no or whatever, right? But by and large, I think Sony's biggest mistake was just not treating it with the care that Marvel does. Now, Marvel has like their own set of issues and, you know, they've been in a slump. But Sony is just like, yeah, fuck it. Like, make the movie, basically. Like, they're so weird with how they approach this stuff from a culture perspective, where it's like, okay, first of all, yeah, we're going to make a Madam Web movie. That's just in and of itself ridiculous. But there were ways that could have been cool. Then they're like, okay, but we'll use this Spider-Man, then we'll use that Spider-Man. And then somebody has to tell them that like none of the stuff they did made sense. And they end up like cutting all of it out. And then the movie's really jarring. There was an article over the weekend that said they took out multiple pages of the script in Act 2 and Act 3, which led to the movie being really clanky. So it's just like your average Hollywood, out of touch, studio notes, suits, all of that sort of stuff, right? So it feels like it's too compartmentalized. It's too old school Hollywood. There's nobody with a vision. There's nobody driving the actual force. And then after the email leaks, they sort of get rid of Amy Pascal. Now, she's still involved, but she's not running the show anymore, right? So I don't know, man. Like part of me thinks that it was Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios, but I also think Sony's inept. And because they're so bad, I kind of don't blame Tom Holland or Feige for wanting to distance themselves, right? Because look at what they did. This is terrible. Now, they would have done better with just throwing Tom Holland in there. But ultimately, I think you still would have arrived at that same level of fatigue. People still would have, because bro, like Kraven being the lowest one, the most recent one is the lowest one. That's not just people thinking it's bad. That's a whole bunch of people thinking it's not worth their time. You know what I mean? That's really bad. So they really screwed the pooch, man.
Yeah, that's why I say like it's not rockets. It's not hard, right? Like to make a good like a comic book cinematic universe is not hard. It's not difficult, you know. And between what Marvel's doing and what Sony's doing, because Sony's making bad movies, Marvel is like for example, news came out supposedly, I don't know how true this is, but supposedly Annihilus is supposed to be like the villain in the Nova TV show.
Sure.
And it's like these are all just bad ideas, right? Because one of the things that drives me nuts, right? One of the things that drives me crazy is there is such a thing as using comic books as inspiration and in turn making things overly convoluted and complex, right? That is very easy to do.
Yep.
When it comes to adapting comic book stuff directly to movies. which is why it shouldn't be one-to-one adaptations 100% of the time. But at the same time, like, I sit here and I look around at Sony and I look at Marvel and I almost pull my hair out of my head because it's like, number one, why aren't you guys working together?
Yeah.
Right. And number two, why are stories being told that way? Like, say for example, like with Nova, right? I don't remember if it's based on Richard Rider or based on Sam Alexander, but I would base it on Sam Alexander because it gives you, because one of the things that people love, and one of the things that was really missing when it came to like Phase 4 and even now with Phase 5, is nothing's building on anything.
Right.
Right. Like what should have happened with the MCU, and this is what happens when you don't plan. What should have happened with the MCU at the end, after Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, is they should have said, okay, cool. So like the story of Thanos is done, right? Thanos is probably never going to come back. But it's a hard sell for anybody who goes and sees those movies. And Marvel pitches them, and they say, this is what it would look like if comic book characters existed in the real world. And then in turn, there's no follow-up, right? Like when it comes to introducing somebody like Sam Alexander in the comics, his dad like vanished, right? His dad was, a member of, what was it, the Black Nova Corps, like the Black Ops Nova Corps group or whatever it was, but he was like some super inner guy, like some, the higher inner circle, Black Ops Elite Nova Corps team, whatever it was. I don't remember. Anyway, all you would do here is you would just say that like Sam Alexander's dad was in the Nova Corps because Star-Lord was not the first person to ever leave Earth and, be taken from or whatever, go into space and do whatever.
Yeah.
But Sam Alexander's dad was in the Nova Corps, and Sam Alexander's dad is one of the members of the Nova Corps that was eradicated when Thanos showed up to Xandar and took the Power Stone. And so you tie Sam Alexander's story into basically the aftermath. And while the story focuses largely on him trying to find his dad and being brought into the Nova Corps and all that kind of stuff, it gives the audience the feeling of like, okay, so it's not as though everything happened with Thanos and then like the world just forgot and we're moving on and we just need to forget that it ever happened because Marvel's treating it like it never did because they don't really reference it outside of Spider-Man, a couple references of Spider-Man and like the sacrifice of Tony Stark. But to the idea of like Sony and Marvel, right? Like there was this idea that I put out in a video a while ago. And it was before the whole announcement of like Doctor Doom. And even now with Doctor Doom, it still works. Right? When they had Kang. And that's a whole botched thing in and of itself.
Yeah,
but
totally.
The idea was, okay, so one of the things that people didn't really seem to pick up on was in Venom 2, I think. One of the movies. It was I think maybe it was Spider-Man. It was a post-credit scene. But Venom was yanked into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
And the symbiote recognized Spider-Man.
Yep.
Right. And I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before. And it's like, okay, cool. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, it's a multiversal hive mind. Because whatchamacallit, Tom Hardy's Venom never encountered Spider-Man.
Right.
And as far as we're aware, Spider-Man doesn't exist in his universe.
Correct.
So the only way that Venom could know about Spider-Man is through someone like what's his name? Oh my God. Topher Grace, who played Venom, right, in Spider-Man 3, or something along those lines. But there is a hive mind on a multiversal level, which immediately told me, okay, Noel's coming. Cool. So I had this idea. I was like, if they're kind of, if Sony is teasing the idea of a shared universe, then why not lean into that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what's up with all this, all this nonsensical politics stuff? So in this video, I was putting forward this idea, and I was like, here's exactly what I would have done if I were Marvel and Sony. Number one, people are tired of the separation. People are tired of Sony's, Spider-Man universe adjunct, quote unquote, to the MCU. Just throw it all into one big pool. Work it out however you need to work it out, right? Stop, having this pissing contest. Stop being squabbling kids. Get your shit together and make a cohesive universe that's not garbage.
Totally.
That's where James Gunn's really going to succeed because DC never had to sell off the the film rights, licensing rights.
That's true.
To their characters. So he's got the whole universe to work with.
Yep.
But what I would have done is I would have said, like, if I were kind of running it all, I would have been like, if Iger, I would have been like, so here's what you guys are doing, right? Here's what we are doing. Madam Web, right? That ass crack of a movie. That's not what it is, right? Instead, like what you do is you like build up Ezekiel Sims, and you're just like, okay, like Ezekiel Sims was part of Miguel O'Hara's team. And Ezekiel Sims realized the threat of the Kangs, and Miguel O'Hara didn't because he was hyper-focused on Miles.
Sure.
So Ezekiel is like, fine, I'll deal with it on my own. So Madam Web is a recruitment movie. And at the end of the movie, they're brought into the Spider-Verse, essentially, with Miles and all those characters. And that's how you start to link things. Basically, every movie kind of builds up to this idea of what was supposed to be Secret Wars and Kang Dynasty. And the great thing about plans like this is that they're not so rigid. Because even if they came along and they said, okay, we don't really know how we feel about Jonathan Majors, everything going on, we're gonna replace him with Doctor Doom. Cool. Yeah. The plan stays.
Yep.
Everything is building up to what's going on with Kang. You never tell the audience what's going on. Leaks come out from scoopers and whatnot, but like at this point in time, most people don't really trust scoopers because they're wrong just as often as they're right. So it's like, okay, cool. I mean, maybe whatever, but folks just take it with a grain of salt. And then in turn, it's all building up to Kang, and it's like, the threat of the Kangs, and all these movies have tie-ins to the threat of the Kangs, yada yada yada. And then you get around to the renamed Avengers Kang Dynasty or whatever that movie is, and Doctor Doom shows up, right? And then you just kind of go forward from there. But the long and short of this, and the reason why all that matters is because what it does is it starts to link everybody together.
Yeah.
And it starts to unify everything together under one roof. So that when you go into the post-Secret Wars landscape, now there's not Sony's adjunct Spider-Verse movies over there that are kind of alongside the MCU, but not really. And, the thing that Sony's just refusing to admit is they're just riding the coattails of Marvel.
Yeah.
And instead, it's all just in one big thing.
Yeah.
But it's all just lumped together. Because at the end of the day, the person that suffers is you and me.
Yeah.
And to the point that you were making about James Gunn's entire universe, that's where I think James Gunn is going to dominate the MCU, is because of the fact that between the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Sony Universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe with all the stuff that they're doing and kind of, cobbling together, right, this whole phase that's going to lead into, Secret Wars and all that kind of stuff, that James Gunn's just kind of like, okay, so what do we do with all of this stuff? Right. Okay. Well, we're going to make a Superman that feels like your granddad's Superman, and all the Snyder fans are going to complain, but they're going to go see the movie, and so their opinions don't matter. So
Damn,
people are going to love
fired.
it.
They're going to come for you.
I mean, their opinions never mattered in the first place. Right? If Snyder fans were right, Scott Snyder or Zack Snyder would still be there. I mean, I'm just saying.
Look,
I'm just saying.
I'm a big Zack Snyder fan. They did him dirty.
I mean, he did himself dirty. His movies were trash.
What?
If his movies were good,
your boy Victor. Your boy Victor does not agree with that. Your boy Victor loves those movies.
Dude, if he's not a big he enjoys Wonder Woman, but he's not a big fan of Wonder Woman. But here's the thing, man. Like
he and I argued about BVS back in the day because I thought the theatrical cut of BVS was trash, and I remember Victor was like defending it and stuff like that, but.
I'm just saying, man. Like, did the movies make a lot of money? Sure, because a lot of people wanted to go see them and they were curious about them. But if the movies were that great, they wouldn't have gotten terrible reviews.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially around Batman.
Just throwing it out there.
I thought Man of Steel was great.
Yeah.
I thought the first Wonder Woman was great, but yeah, BVS was like, what the hell? And then obviously the Justice League was terrible. So yeah. Yeah, it's one of Snyder fans are just like, this Snyderverse was fantastic, as evidenced by all the terrible reviews it got. But
right,
Zack Snyder
this restaurant here,
League,
this restaurant is the best restaurant in town. It's poorly reviewed by everybody, and that's how I know it's the best restaurant in town because everybody hates it.
Look, as a resident Zack Snyder fan, we're very good at avoiding logic because we love Zack Snyder. So look, there's some truth. In what
those are stands. Yeah. Those are stands of anything, but no. I mean, that's the thing. And now you're already kind of seeing fractures when it comes to James Gunn's cinematic universe. Because, for example, people absolutely adored the Matt Reeves Batman mythos so far, right? Between the first Batman movie and then the Penguin, right? People are just so this is the Batman mythos that we need. Right. Yeah. Which I love it. I love the idea that Robert Pattinson is playing a Batman who's becoming Batman.
Sure.
He's not the dude who's just by the power of plot armor, I always come out on top because, reasons. I love that we're getting that whole thing. I think that Matt Reeves needs to be the head of the Batman mythos. But the fact is, right, the bigger point here is this. There are no limitations on what James Gunn can do.
True.
Outside of maybe what the studio might let him do.
Right.
But there's no licensing issues. There's no, well, Universal owns the film rights to, the Green
whole
Lantern, so we can't do anything with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's nothing along those lines. So they're entirely open. And depending on how James Gunn handles it, it may turn into one of those things where, maybe it's not as great as we thought it was, right? Maybe he's not great at holding it all together. Who knows?
Yeah. It's yet to be
But at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, I think between his depiction of villains, his depiction of superheroes, that hopefully it comes out well. But for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, man, and for Sony, like it's kind of it's astounding to me.
Yeah.
It's astounding to me looking around that all these ideas that just feel like common sense, that all these ideas that just seem that the ability to create a cohesive cinematic universe, that it's so simple to do.
Yeah.
And yet Marvel and Sony just really seem hell-bent on making it so hard to do.
Yeah.
Making it so difficult and so convoluted and complicated.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's kind of boggling to me. Like it's to the point now where if Kevin Feige came out after Secret Wars, and was like, so I'm stepping down, I'm retiring, I would legitimately put my name in the hat of just being like, you know what? Like, let me spearhead this.
Yeah.
Let me spearhead the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Especially because it's coming to X-Men next,
Yeah, especially with it coming from the X-Men, right? Because I'm the guy who could tell you that like Trinity was the girlfriend of X-Man Nate Gray in the 1990s, and she was an empath. She sucked, but she was an empath.
Yeah.
Right? I'm the guy that could explain the origin of Strife and Cable in the span of like 10 minutes, right? I am the guy where if Marvel brings a actor or actress on for a movie and they need to know maybe the essential bits or whatever it is, they need an understanding of the character, I'm the guy you send them to.
Yeah.
Right? So with all of the knowledge that I have of Marvel, and even what knowledge I don't have, there's a lot of people that I could reach out to.
Yeah.
With all of that, it's like, dude, just I would put my name in the hat.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, so here's the structure that I would build in order to create a kind of council of sorts. And we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Right? Like a council of 9 people, right? 3 comic book YouTubers, 3 comic book movie, TV reviewers, and 3 comic book writers.
Sure.
Right? Like, and you build that and say, okay, this is how we are going to make this whole cinematic universe work. Like I would put my name in that hat. And I would be like, let me just take over for Kevin Feige, man.
Yeah.
But there's also the part of me that's just like, man, do I really want to hitch my horse to this carriage?
Yeah.
Because it's,
Well, I would say,
I don't know, man.
I would say, like I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think the thing that's weird about Marvel specifically is that like if you study it closely, it's not so different from what they did over the past couple of years for what they did in the Infinity Saga. So like what I mean is like they didn't have a finished script for Iron Man 1 when they started shooting, right? Endgame had all kinds of rewrites, all kinds of changes, and the story of Marvel Studios throughout the Infinity Saga I think was a good production, but really they were incredible retconners. So meaning they had this ability to set stuff up and they were absolutely setting stuff up. But more than that, they were really clever about looking what they had done and retconning it to have greater impact later, right? So like the Infinity Saga's stones are the MacGuffins throughout all of the films. You would say, yeah, you think a lot of that's intentional, but we know that not all of it was, like not at first. So that's an idea that happens later that then is really beautifully used as a retcon to like make it all feel like this big cohesive story. And so I guess what I'm saying is like, it's tough because some people might think, oh, well, what they did for the first 10 years, totally different than what they did in the Infinity Saga or in the Phase 4. That's why Phase 4 sucks. And I would say, no, that's absolutely false. They were scrambling the whole first 10 years. I think the big difference was less volume. So Kevin was able to like really be touching all of these movies, right? Because it was just at one time 1 to 2 movies a year. It became 3 movies a year. But dude, in phase 4, it was like 3 movies a year and 6 shows. It was just like way too much, right? Way too much. And I also think there were some things that happened that jammed them up. And frankly, the multiverse was more of a burden than a tool because they kept cutting stuff out of it. Like they just weren't ready. Yeah. So like, dude, like as one example, there was supposed to be a scene in Multiverse of Madness with Magneto, and they were supposed to explain that Magneto and Charles in that universe found out about Wanda and the Scarlet Witch prophecy in the Darkhold, and they agree to lobotomize her. And her dad, and her dad agrees to let Charles lobotomize her. Now, this is a little like House of Emmy, right? So the reason
they were all like, we're going to kill her.
Right. So like the reason they end up cutting that is just that they didn't want to commit to that because they had all these other plans that they were trying to tie in. So like there was a lot of great stuff that like should have happened that they cut out. So like in WandaVision, all of those little commercials, those were originally intended to be Doctor Strange trying to communicate to Wanda as she was doing the hex. Because remember, at first, she doesn't even understand that she did the hex, right? So they end up removing all of that because they just weren't ready to commit to Doctor Strange, like this, that, second, and the third, right? So there was more connective stuff that they end up just cutting because they couldn't figure it out. So I think the scale was too big. I think the multiverse was too big. I think they also relied on some of the wrong people. And then ultimately they cut away some incredible stuff that I think would have been really cool. Now, Sony also screws them up because in 2019, Sony takes the license back. And we know from Joanna Robinson's book that like Kevin was going to lean on Spider-Man heavily. Like it's rumored that Spider-Man was supposed to be in Captain Marvel 2. That would have done way better than the Marvels, right? So
100%.
You know, there was a multitude of factors. So like, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm just totally on the copium, but I actually believe that they can scramble again and get out of this. They just have to condense. They just have to get the right people in there, and then they have to commit to these plans and just let it happen, because without some of that juice, yeah, man, it feels very whimsical. It feels all over the place. And the connection, which is what we're really talking about, like the shared lived-in universe, that's like gone. Like that just doesn't feel like a thing anymore. So yeah, they have a way out, I think. But I mean, I obviously agree that like this just hasn't been what it should have been. And I think, unfortunately, they're just going to streamline to Secret Wars. We're going to have some multiversal fun. And then they're going to set up a new thing. And hopefully it then gets back to being more tight, because it's not multiverse, right? It's just the X-Men and, you know, other characters, and hopefully a Nihilus. So, yeah, I get what you're saying. And I think there is still hope. But I think it was like a scaling up problem, man. Some things work great, and then you try to scale it up, and it falls apart completely, you know?
Yeah, and that's really the question. That brings in a good question, like, because it's all about planning, right? It's one of the things James Gunn said. Like, we are not going to commit to a film until a script is done.
Sure.
Right, and then we'll just be like, okay, now that the script is finished, then like we'll announce it, right? And then, you know, that I think that was really him more saying like, hey guys, we're not going to run into the issues of Blade, right?
Sure.
Where we announce a movie and just say like, this is an idea we have. Right? Because when you stand up in front of Hall H and you say, hey guys, we're making a Blade movie, the assumption and the expectation of the audience is that, okay, cool. So you just need to like film it,
yeah,
and then edit it,
yep,
and then release it.
Yep.
You know, and so when you come out, when things start coming out and saying, well, we haven't locked down a director, we haven't locked down a script. Well, we have a director and we have a script, but then we got to do rewrites on the script.
Yeah.
Well, we lost that director, so we have a new one. Well, then we lost that one. It makes you look incompetent. It makes you look like you don't know what you're doing.
Yep, that's true.
And so yeah, I mean, I totally get things from that perspective, but it is all about planning. And that's why I say, like, if Phase 4 showed anything, and I understand the first 10 years, where it's just kind of like, okay, we're flying by the seat of our pants. You know, the post-credit scene of Thanos and Avengers was just, you know, what's his name? Oh my God. The guy who directed Avengers, Joss Whedon.
Oh, Joss Whedon, yeah.
Right, just like Yeah, just being a fan of Thanos and just throwing him into a post-credit scene,
Sure.
right? So like they're like, okay, like we need to roll with that, and Thanos is going to be the big guy because everybody's talking about it. I understand the first 10 years,
Yeah.
because it was the first time that they were like, we're building out a shared universe. But this is the point now when it's like, okay, so like, what did we learn here
Right.
out of all of this? Well, it's like I said before, right? You do your phases, and then you take like a 2 to 3 year hiatus. And in between, you're like doing that 2 to 3 year hiatus, you just kind of release like Marvel Presents and Marvel 2-in-1, right?
Yeah.
Where 2-in-1 wraps up plot. I'm sorry, 2-in-1 introduces potentially new characters, and Marvel Presents wraps up plot threads, and that's it. That's all it does. Especially the plot thread wrapping up part would be great. Like I think people would love that because it gives people enough information and enough of a reminder that the MCU still exists, but people don't really get fatigued, right? With essentially, and Marvel doesn't get fatigued by constantly having to crank out products that just aren't necessarily that great.
Right.
But during that time, because they effectively put the Marvel Cinematic Universe on autopilot, for a few years, 2 to 3 years, that it gives them the ability to plan what comes next, right? How do we take everything that happened and then build on that and launch what comes next?
Yeah.
Right. Like what takes place next. The X-Men is going to be is going to be very, very interesting here because there's a lot of stories you can do with the X-Men, right? You can build up Wolverine's mythos, you can build up Weapons Plus, you can build up Project Wide Awake, you can do the Purifiers, you can do what's his name? Cameron Hodge and the Smileys. You can do all kinds of stuff, right? There's a zillion things that you can do. Right. Operation Zero Tolerance, and there is Extinction Agenda. There's all kinds of stories.
Yep.
But to the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this is really where the balancing act is going to come into play, they're going to have to find a way to balance everything that goes on with the X-Men and the Avengers and whatever other teams they have that they're creating content on.
Yep.
And so that's why I understand the idea of Feige and them coming out and saying, okay, like we're going to do TV shows. Now, I think dedicating an entire season to one character or something like that isn't necessarily the best idea. There's ways to make it work. That's neither here nor there. But the question I have is this. With someone like Annihilus in the comics, one of the big issues is he was a universal threat at the time Civil War is happening.
Right.
In Marvel Comics. So how do you square that? Okay, cool. You just bring everybody in. I mean, you could have easily done that. It would have made perfect sense given the nature of the Annihilation storyline, right? If Civil War wasn't going on, the superheroes from Earth go into space, they help everybody with Annihilation, the story unfolds differently.
Yeah.
There's a lot that you can do there. But for the most part in Marvel, there aren't necessarily a lot of grandiose universal threats that require a coming together of the entire superhero community.
Yeah.
And at the moment right now, there aren't even really a lot of Earth-based threats.
That's true.
That require a coming together of the entire superhero community.
Mm-hmm.
Which means I imagine that what we're going to be seeing going forward is in the same way that you got like Avengers, right? You're going to get that for the X-Men. Right? So you're going to have like the big X-Men crossover films.
Sure.
You're going to have the big Avengers crossover films.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? And then like the big spacefaring crossover films.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. No, Korvac Saga wouldn't be bad. Like Korvac Saga would be cool. And I love the character of Michael Korvac. But again, that's a one-off. Korvac literally kills himself at the end of the story.
Yeah.
He ends his existence.
Well, I would say,
so, I mean,
when it comes to Annihilus, I'm not 100% sure on this, but there are some of the scoopers kind of indicating that he's way bigger than just a villain of the Nova show. And potentially like a big bad for the mutant phase. I don't know how that would work exactly, because I've also heard that like it's going to be Celestials and Judgment Day and stuff like that. So we'll see how all that works. But yeah, I mean, I think the real test, because I think we're guaranteed in the next couple of years, I think we're guaranteed Deadpool Wolverine levels of fan service and excitement. So I don't know that Doomsday or Secret Wars will be elevated in the same way that like Winter Soldier or even Infinity War itself or parts of Endgame were, but I guarantee crazy amounts of fun and fan service, kind of like Deadpool and Wolverine, right? Now, the Russos,
I'm not denying that.
The Russos being involved gives me a little bit of hope because I don't think they get enough credit for putting as much human conflict and like really humanizing emotional scenes. Like, dude, Endgame is fucking sad, dude. Like it's a
Yeah.
sad movie. Like a lot of closure, a lot of like really interesting stuff. But I think the real test will be the mutant saga. I think the real test is going to be when we get out of Secret Wars, because it's almost like we have a free pass for the next 3 years just based off hype, right? Just hype. But will it get back to being what it was in the Infinity Saga? That will be determined in the mutant saga. And it's going to be dependent on how they're building that out. What are their end goals? And really, what's the talent? Like, who are they bringing in to make these movies, right? Like, 'cause they need really talented people. They need to find, like, the next version of the Russo brothers. And that needs to be the people that carry through. Because if you think about it, Marcus and McFeely wrote so many of the clutch Infinity Saga movies. Like, they were basically the writers of Marvel. You know what I mean? So you need, like, a writer-director team that's going to be like that for the Mutant Saga. That's going to be like, okay, we're bringing it. We have a plan. Here's the threads. Because, like, Cap versus Iron Man, so much of the emotional beats of the Infinity Saga are literally based on their personal disagreements. Just extrapolate it out, right? So you need, like, that kind of character stuff. And perhaps you can do that with Scotty, you know, and Cyclops. Perhaps you can do that with Magneto and Charles. I'm not really sure what angle they'll take. But there's gold in them hills. It's just going to be dependent on, like, can they actually, like, get in there and separate it and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can. It's just, it's like I said, you know, I get that they're planning the X-Men, and if X-Men is done right, there's a lot of world building in the Marvel universe that goes into that comes out of the X-Men mythos.
Sure.
You know, and it's that's what makes things that's what makes stuff so cool.
Yeah.
So like on the
there's,
comic book side, right?
supernatural
And it can,
stuff, there's like multiversal stuff, reality warping stuff. The mutants encompass a lot of those sort of subsections of Marvel for sure.
yeah. Well, that's, I mean, yeah, and that's okay. So like from a comic book side, for example, right? Like if we said we wanted to, if they said, okay, we're doing mutants, we want to kind of almost zoom out and look at things from a broader perspective. There's a lot of history there, right? So for example, like in Marvel Comics, there's a guy called Forever Man, which technically he appeared in an Avengers comic, and it was supposedly he was I think it was like Avengers 218. Supposedly he was a mutant, but basically he would die and then be reborn again. And he wouldn't remember anything from his past life. There was a moment in the story where he remembered everything and then went insane and then died and then came back and didn't remember anything anymore. But there's guys like Garba Hassin and Nicodemus. Like Garba Hassin is hundreds of thousands of years old. Nicodemus is almost as old as he is, right? They are externals, legitimately immortal mutants that are not indestructible, but will never die of old age or disease.
Gotcha.
There's Selene, she's 17,000 years old. Apocalypse, of course, you know, is about 5,000 years old or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But Selene was around during the time of like the Great Cataclysm, right? The sinking of Atlantis. Well, there's your mythos when it comes to Namor the Submariner. If they ever wanted to go in the direction and say, well, you know, Namor's race used to exist in Atlantis and then they moved and now they live over here.
Yep.
As we saw in Black Panther too. There's all kinds of like history and stuff that you can bring in. And that's just, you know, on that X-Men side. Again, you know, it's one of these things where I get that there's some things you can't do. You don't want to overwhelm the audience.
Right.
But when I'm looking at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm looking at the current phase, going into Secret Wars. It all kind of feels cobbled together. And I do kind of have concerns about, yeah, man, Ana de Armas playing Selene, 100% down. Like, I'll watch anything with Ana de Armas in it.
She's babe.
Gorgeous. But yeah, she's super hot. But yeah, it's one of these things where, depending on how they end Secret Wars, going into the post-Secret Wars landscape, that there's a lot of world building that can be done.
I
and there's a
agree.
lot of exploration that can be done. Now, again, whether or not they do that, I don't know. I'm only talking about the last 15 years in comics. No, like Avengers 218 was a couple decades ago. Like it was like maybe 30, 40 years ago. Yeah, Nicodemus and all them, they were introduced years ago. Selene was introduced years ago. She was actually introduced in the original New Mutants run in Marvel Comics. But yeah, no, I mean, it's one of these, it's, you know, again, like,
It's just going to depend
was a
on
time-
how they transition into the soft reboot into mutants. Like that's going to be so key for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I don't. I still say they're gonna New Earth. I still say they're gonna wipe out. Um, they're gonna wipe out the whole multiverse, and I think it'd be cool
Yeah, I
if
think
at
so
the end
too.
of it all, with Loki being the guy who sits in the chair right now, that Loki would say, okay, like they're not going to bring him back in his in current form. Tom Hiddleston will be done, and he'll say, okay, setting things to the way they should be,
Yeah.
and just like they effectively hard reboot. And so what you get going forward is kind of this new restructured, rearranged MCU, right? That brings in all the characters, and you effectively get to kind of start from scratch.
Yeah.
Right, you get to start from zero. Again, I don't know if they'll necessarily do, and I mean, I'll ask your audience this, right? Like those of you guys in the chat right now, how would you feel if the Marvel Cinematic Universe reset at the end of Secret Wars? Not soft reboot.
Yeah.
Not, we're going to put everybody in this universe here, but all the history's still intact. But I mean, like, wiped out everything that's happened up to this point, and you start back from zero. So essentially, Tony Stark's sacrifice in Infinity War is not in continuity anymore.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it only, like, as far as the in-universe history is concerned, it never took place. I mean, how would people feel about that? And I feel like it'd be kind of a mixed bag where some folks are just like, I mean, I think you need that. And I think there are some who would just be like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
don't
like,
know.
that's a big question is like, there's just a lot we don't know about the soft reboot. Like, how soft, how hard is that going to be? For me personally, I would love a hard reboot. Like, just dead ass, hard reset, completely new. Because it would be interesting to, like, see what they were doing this time. Almost like the same way that we're enjoying, like, the Absolute Universe or the Ultimates Universe. It's like, we know certain characters are coming. We know certain themes are going to be there. But how do they express themselves? Like, and the difference is, that's kind of fun. So, like, I think that would be clutch. Now, there were old rumors. I don't know if these are true. But there were old rumors that along with the soft reboot, there was going to be an Ultimates universe. And they were going to do like another MCU that was like its own like Ultimates thing. I don't know how that would work because like you run the risk of like that devaluing the current canon, right? But it could be interesting, So I don't know. Maybe they'll try to do both.
Yeah. I don't know that people would necessarily be against it. I don't know. I mean, your audience kind of seems, for the most part, at least those who commented, seem like they would be in favor of a hard reboot. And I think maybe most people would, right? Like, okay, guys, like we did our first 10 years, we learned our lessons, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We're starting from scratch, we're resetting everything, and going forward from there. It would make things a lot cleaner and a lot easier.
Yeah, I agree.
And truth to tell, I think it would actually drum up a lot of interest.
I agree.
Because people are like, okay, like what does it look like? The only question I would have when it came into that is, do you do origins again? Do you do the origin of Iron Man, the origin of Captain America? Do you do, the origin of the Incredible Hulk? Right? Do you do that?
Maybe,
or are people just kind of like, I mean, we know their story.
Yeah, but like maybe we do it, but not dedicate an entire film to it. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I kind of really like what they're doing in the Ultimates right now and how they're introducing different people. So like maybe there's a way to do it and then have the differences clearly explained without doing like a basically standalone movie that's dedicated to them becoming the character. Because like remember that used to be the thing, and then it's like, oh, we get to see him in the comic accurate suit at the end of the first movie. Like that used to be the thing. Like that was like what we were looking for, and we're way past that. So I think like maybe you do an Ultimates movie. And it's like a string of different versions of the Avengers. And we're like, we're finding out about the new Tony, or maybe it's his dad, or, whatever. But just not doing like an entire project dedicated to them being formed.
Or, I mean, if you are going to do an origin for Iron Man, just do it the way they did with the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, where you get the origin in the opening credits.
Yeah.
Like in the opening, where it's just like the movie created by, such and such. And it's just like a series of,
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Images in quick succession. Yeah.
Because
so like within 5 minutes.
Well, that's kind of what they do with Tom Holland Spider-Man, right? It's like, we don't have an origin film for him. It's like explained via scenes with Tony Stark as he's recruiting him. You know what I mean? And like,
No, the whole trilogy was an origin film. Like the trilogy was an origin movie for Spider-Man.
That's true. It's an origin to him becoming the Spider-Man that like we recognize. but he was out there acting as Spider-Man, and like instead of a whole movie of him in that found footage suit that like Tony has with the goggles and everything, in Civil War, we just understand via that scene that he has been active as Spider-Man, and he's trying to just help the little guy, and that's kind of like his whole modus operandum. Now that then through the course of the movies takes him to a place where he's Peter Parker living broke in Queens, but he's already got his powers. We didn't see him get bit by the spider. You know what I mean? We don't need to have him go to Oscorp again and have the spiders fall on him or anything like that. So I think there's ways to do it that sort of keeps it more fresh for the modern audience.
Yeah, that's why I say. I mean, one of the big criticisms that I know that you had, and I know that people who read comic books had, that I had, was when Civil War dropped, for example. It felt more like civil disagreement, right? Civil skirmish.
True. Yeah.
If anything, like, whereas the Civil War event was a huge, I mean, even to this day, it's considered to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, comic book events to ever drop in the history of Marvel.
Yep.
And it involved everybody.
Yep.
Right? It was everyone from Captain America and Iron Man bickering at the top, all the way down to like Iron Man hiring heroes for hire to find Captain America, right?
Yep.
So it involved everybody. So when you look at something like Civil War being put in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but now the world's a lot bigger, right? Now you have Doctor Strange, and you have the X-Men, and you have all these characters that you didn't have initially. It totally changes to the point that you could legitimately do Civil War as an entire phase.
I agree. Yeah. No, I
Right?
agree.
In
And I
between
think,
movies and TV shows, it all ties together.
I think that would be really smart. And I'm actually kind of hoping that Avengers versus X-Men is a phase-long conflict instead of just kind of the Civil War treatment. Like, I'm kind of hoping that, maybe some stuff spins out of the multiverse closure with Secret Wars that gives people a big distrust of mutants. Maybe Wanda does something. And then maybe that influences stuff going forward, and that conflict just is persistent, right? Because, like, when Cap shows up in X-Men 97, kind of know what time it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of know, like, he means well, but he's not an ally. He's not really there to, like, make sure the mutants are okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a conflict. So I actually like that, and I would hope that they use that throughout, several movies and shows, hopefully.
Yeah, but that's why I say, I mean, like a hard reboot wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing, because it gives Marvel the ability to kind of just start fresh, right? And just say, okay, so we learned our lessons. Like, let's just kind of let's plan things out, right? Because not only does the universe feel new, it gives Marvel a whole new toolkit based on their previous experiences to figure out how to do things better, right? So they say, okay, instead of flying by the seat of our pants for the first 10 years, let's plan out like 20 years worth of stuff.
Yep.
And we're not going to plan it so rigidly that if people don't like it, that we're just kind of stuck with these plans. We can adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
But there's small little things that you can do here and there that kind of build this shared universe. For example, like, imagine if Morbius was a movie. If Morbius the movie existed in the MCU, but instead of it being as terrible of a film as it is, that of course it was a better film, but over the course of that movie, Morbius encounters Blade, who at that point is just a vampire hunter, and he bites him or attacks him. The two of them get into a fight because Blade's coming after Morbius. And because Morbius bites him, now Blade has the ability to walk in the daylight, because that's what happened in the comics.
Yeah.
Blade is only able to walk in the daylight because he was bitten by Michael Morbius.
Really?
Right. So like small little things like that, right?
Yeah.
Small little moments, and so on. But again, there's ways, and that's why I say I don't believe that hard reboots should kind of be abused the way that DC's done them over the years.
Sure.
And of course, even in like DC's universe, right? Post Crisis on Infinite Earths, you had 0 Hour, Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, and those were all designed to wrap up issues that you had in the aftermath of the original Crisis, because it wasn't planned very well.
Yeah.
It was planned over the course of a couple months, But if it's done effectively and it's done well, Secret Wars presents the perfect opportunity to just reset it all. And start it all from zero and just kind of go from there. Right? Like it would be cool.
Yeah.
Like it would be interesting.
I agree.
Like there's ways to build it out. Like
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
hopeful,
I don't
man.
know.
I'm hopeful that some cool stuff comes out of that. I mean, I think we're gonna get what we get, and like I said, I think it's gonna be a little bit more hype oriented. But I think Secret Wars was always that, right? Hickman's Secret Wars was elevated, but all the Secret Wars before that were just like the good guys and the bad guys, and you smash the toys together. Like that's all it is. So I think it's gonna be just hype, but hopefully with some substance. And then I'm really interested in the reboot. What the reboot is really going to determine whether Marvel can ever get back to what it was, or if it's just going to kind of lean more into hype and just be events and stuff like that. I think, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Which, by the way, apparently Marvel Rivals dropped an Infinity comic.
Oh, really? Okay, we're gonna have to watch that and check it out.
Yeah. Buddy of mine, Jason, just sent me a text and was like, the Infinity, like, there's a Marvel Rivals comic out now. I was like, hell yeah, there is, man. I got to cover that.
Hell yeah. We got to play together again soon, man. I've been tightening it up, doing better. So
Yeah. I'm going to be on later on tonight, probably with a buddy of mine, Christopher, and then Jason. I think he's going to be on. And I'll probably hit up Alex the Soupy. Soupy is legit. He's probably in the maybe top 10, 15 players that I've ever seen.
Dope.
So yeah, we could probably pull together a full 6.
Let's do it.
And Jason's really good at running healer. And then Chris
Nice.
loves running Mantis. So we got
Perfect.
2 healers right there. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, yeah,
that's gonna
man.
be cool.
I'll hit you up later. I got to get into these chats. I got to get out of here because I got to do some get some other stuff going on. But I appreciate the call. It's always a good chat, man.
Yeah, definitely, dude.
I feel like that could have been a whole podcast episode in itself. So that was good.
Yeah, probably. All right, man. I'll let you get to it.
All right, brother, man. Appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, dude. Later,
Peace,
man.
Later. Always good to get a call from Rob. Always good to hear from the GOAT. I think Rob brings up some good points, man. I mean, I understand where his head's at with this stuff. And I think, as big time nerds that kind of have seen the ups and downs of this whole thing, I think at the end of the day, it's really just frustrating to watch some of what's happening because it really does seem like the answer is simple. I'm sure it's more complicated than it is from the outside looking in. But like Rob's point is sound. Like, what are you doing without Spider-Man? What are you doing not sharing? Like, what are you doing setting this up and it doesn't do this, that, second, and the third? Like, it's been a little sloppy. So I think it's perfectly reasonable for people, especially that are very, very nerdy, to just want them to do better. So I definitely agree with them. Now, as far as Penguin and James Gunn and all that shit, I mean, he wrong, but damn, you better Twitch stream those games, Josh. I mean, we'll see. Watch the new Marvel Rivals winter announcement. Okay, can somebody send me a link? Send me a link, and then I want to crack open some stuff, and then I got to get out of here. I got a lot of stuff that I got to get to. But yeah, we can watch that shit. Where is that? All right, let me catch up on a couple chats here. Coffee Chiller says, Dr. Josh, what if the reshoots were Pattinson Batman meeting Superman in a post-credit scene? Oh my God, bro. Now you're talking my language, dude. That is hype. That could be frankly pretty legit over there. Wow. Eric D says, Josh, they actually animated James Gunn into the opening credits of Creature Commandos. LMAO, this guy Gunn is really something else. Not good. Holy. I mean, I agree. We'll see if it all folds in and collapses on him. But hey, maybe he's that guy. If he makes a Superman movie work, I mean, I'm going to have to give him credit for that. Your boy Strange, welcome back to the Nerd Vengers, bro. Appreciate it. Parker Thwips with a 10 spot, man. Appreciate it. Says, I'm late, and I don't know if y'all talked about it yet, but if Gunn brings in Pattinson, I'm going to flip on my boy and go full-on Gunn hater. I am beyond tired of this real-world Batman, even if Superman slaps. Damn, Parker Thwips. That's a harsh take. I actually am in the opposite camp, which might shock you. I don't even like the Batman, and I don't like the Penguin, but I recognize that people like the current Batman, and I think Pattinson, like for me, like Rob was saying, like he likes the introduction of the new Batman. I want to get to like the Bat God stuff where he's like so powerful he could take out the whole Justice League and shit. But we could take Pattinson there. Like, Pattinson could get there. And by the way, meeting Superman, that's going to bring a whole new perspective, right? So I actually am for it, man. I'm actually for it. I think it could be good. I think it could be good. Where's that Marvel Rivals trailer, guys? Holy shit. Let me see. Should I just find it over here? Marvel Rivals. 1 hour ago. Ooh. Oh. Winter celebration. A bunch of freaking Jeffs. Oh, everybody loves Jeff. Oh, Jeff is just so cool. Well, guess what? The first time that Jeff swallows your whole fucking team and then throws you off a ledge, you're going to be like, fuck Jeff. Snowball fights with Jeff? Fuck out of here. It's It's When I see Jeff out there, man, it's on sight. That looks really cool, though. Is that a skin for Venom? Whoa! That's sick. Holiday skin? That looks sick, dude. Whoa, Christmas tree Groot? Okay, they're cooking. This is cool. That's pretty cool, dude.
Rocket here.
And the Santa hat?
I'm magic. And
Oh
this
shit,
is my soul
magic.
sword.
What about for my characters? No Christmas shit for me? The fuck? I mean, those skins are cool, but I don't really play any of those characters. Like, give me some Iron Man shit, you know? Holy. Holy. All right. Okay, last thing on the agenda, and we're going to get out of here. Let's unbox some shit. Let's see here. This is... This... What the hell? Who's this from? Oh, this isn't for me. This is stuff for the new baby. Oh, you know what this is? You guys got stuff off the registry. Okay. Appreciate that. But, I mean, like, it's not for me, you know? For Athena? Like, come on. Oh, more stuff for Athena? Man, this little baby's already so spoiled. What about me? What about me? Oh, this is it's so well packaged that I can't get into it. Gosh dang it. Well, gosh dang it. Hang on, it's okay. Dude, this one piece of tape is like the fucking ghost of tape. Holy. Ah! What kind of tape is this? Ah! It's fucking tape. Ah! Hang on, it's okay. Ah! Okay, we're good. Oh my fucking god. Dude. I probably should have just used a knife. Probably should have just used a knife and we would have been fine. Whoa! What's this? What's this? Well, that's way easier. Whoa! Guys, this is from Austin. It's so much cooler than anything Trev has ever sent me. Signed by Jim Shooter. Secret Wars number 8. 9.8 graded. And it's signed. And it's framed. We're putting it on the wall. Oh my god, it's glorious. Smells good too. Holy, that's dope. Austin! My favorite nerd Venger, because my affection can be bought. Just so you know. Is Rob still here? I should have showed Rob. Whoa! He got something for Liam. Guys, watch this. This is what a good dad does. Look at this. Okay. Holy. Secret Wars Marvel friggin' number 3? Secret Wars number 3? 9.8? Signed? Oh my gosh. Okay. Check this out. I just want to show you how this works, okay? That's how you fix it. Yo, that's sick, dude. Yeah, I believe his YouTube name is Ace 009 or something like that. Yo, that is sick, dude. W. W's in the chat, bro. Oh, hell yeah. That's sick, huh? Ah, Austin, do you need a sugar baby? Yeah. Liam looking back on this stream 18 years from now. I know, right? Yeah. Should we be worried about X-Men 97 too? We should be... I don't know if I would say worried, but yeah, let's keep our eye on it, you know? Yeah, Ace 99E. W's. Austin, I appreciate it, brother. That's legitimately super cool, man. Those are going to look great on the wall. I'll find a spot for them over there. Those are going to look great on the wall, man. Woo! Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Okay, guys. I think we're all caught up. Oh, wait, hang on. Here's one here. Mickey says, do you think the animated shows in a potential reboot would also carry the plots of the sagas and be within the same universe like Gunn's DC? I would say they could probably do that. I'm assuming that after we get out of the Multiverse Saga, we're going to have way less Elseworld stuff. I think we'll still have it, but I think it'll be less of a priority. I think building the actual universe is the priority. But you'll still get stuff like maybe X-Men 97, Spider-Man 98 or something like that. So fix the poster. I actually need to get the poster framed for sure. 100%. So we're working on that. But I got a lot of stuff to do. Now show some more skin. Is that good? Little collarbone action. Will that make you love me? Ah, Rossi, I appreciate it, brother. One of your gifts delivered today. Second will be Xmas. I appreciate it, guys. Guys, chat. W's in the chat. What a great Monday stream. Getting to talk about Sony and Morbius and the failure. Getting to talk about Superman. Holy cow, they're actually off to a great start. I can't believe it. I'm excited, dude. Thursday, that's going to be huge. Video dropping for you guys later tonight. We'll be back at it tomorrow at 11. We might be on Twitch tonight playing Rivals. I don't know. I can't guarantee it because I got a lot of shit going on. Like, I've said that a couple times, but I really got a lot of shit going on. We'll be back at it Wednesday as well. Thursday, break down the trailer. Then we're going live to break down the brand new Superman trailer with the community. Please be here. Thursday's going to be epic. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. Much love. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day. And I'll see you in the next video. I see Williams chat here. Next July, Superman and Fantastic Four come out. Which of these two movies will dominate? I think Fantastic Four, but we're going to have to see. You know, we'll see what the trailer looks like Thursday, and that'll be a big determining factor. Okay, bye. Is everybody gone? Did everybody leave? Leave. Oh man, that was a good one. Good way to start the Monday. Little convo with Rab. Some cool news. Some DC shit. Hell yeah. Thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate it. Lots of cool stuff coming at ya. And it is the holiday season, you know? So we got to spend some time with the fam. which is really you guys. I mean, you guys are the family. You know what I mean? Like the Nerd Avengers. You know what I'm saying? All right, everybody. Make sure you open up your third eye. And why don't you do me a favor and wash out your stinky butt?